At the UPS Store, we know being a small business owner means holiday time is still go time. Still get those orders shipped time. And still re-up on stamps and supplies time. That's why this upcoming holiday, while others close up shop, we'll be open. And happy to help you keep being unstoppable. Come into your local store today. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Kosei Fuja, releasing Keeping Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace Up podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review Power Struggle and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping a Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get the next podcast over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chop Tees store, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order. That's chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. We are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style for IWGP subscribers. If you want access to our weekly live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content, subscribe at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, are you there?
I am here. This has been quite an evening. We've had some more technical difficulties. I feel like that's becoming the trend on this show after years and years of never ever having to really deal with too many audio or visual issues. Like this stuff's just been compounding. I don't know. Like the one computer that I like to. So here's the issue: is like I've got a work computer. That's what I'm recording on now. But that work computer does, for whatever reason, it's got some sort of block that doesn't allow me to use the camera that I normally use, which is like a 1080p camera. It's a good camera, but so like if anyone's watching us live right now, I don't know who's in the chat. You can see that I'm using the integrated webcam, which it just looks fucking weird. Like I don't know, it's horrible. So normally I don't use this computer, but the issue is the computer I normally use for one reason or another, the sound, like it's just not connecting with the microphone. So, you know, it's like either we can have the camera and no sound, or we're going to have a shitty camera. And I'm not really sure, you know, how to rectify the situation, doing the best we can.
Yeah. Sounds like we might need to dump into the funds to buy you a new laptop.
I guess I've never, oh no, I owned a laptop once. Yeah. But for the most part, yeah, I think I've only ever owned a laptop in my lifetime.
Wow. Well, we'll keep working on that. You sound great right now. We're online right now. So
yeah, we got the XLR cable we talked about. So, you know, the Rodecaster's back up and running. I'm not on the shitty Amazon microphone that we've used in the past. And yeah, we're rocking and rolling. I don't know, we're not going to get too deep into it. I know it's not a political, podcast. We got people from all walks of life and socioeconomic and political backgrounds, yada yada. But as you can see, I am adorned in my grief attire. Black on black, the black hat, the black shirt. We are in mourning.
Yeah, and just hoping that this podcast will be a distraction for some of you guys who, are kind of in that kind of depressed mourning state and not really happy with the election results. So hopefully we can kind of help bring some joy to your day and be a distraction to all the stuff that's going on right now. Yeah, so it took me, I don't know, at this point, like I almost feel like I'm falling out of touch with New Japan because it's like, everyone's up on this shit, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, fuck, like it's a 5-hour show. It's going to take me a day or two. Find the time to get through. So that's why we're recording on a Wednesday. And, I heard great things about the show beforehand. We're going to review it. Show was phenomenal, but there's no getting around it. There's some very controversial and, difficult kind of directions coming out of that we're going to have to assess. And, part of me like a day or two ago was like, I'm going to go on the show. I'm going to fucking rant. I'm going to rip to shreds what they're doing here. But then real world shit is happening. It's like, how am I supposed to fucking care about Shota Umino in the Dome when Don Trump's in the White House? Like, I don't know. Like it puts things in perspective. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Well, let's do our best here. People come for the ace of podcasts, and I'm sure they want something to listen to get their minds off things. So let's do our best here and jump into New Japan. Like you mentioned, we did have Power Struggle this past weekend, which was the culmination of the Power Struggle Tour and the Super Junior Tag League. So we'll get into that real quick. I got the updated attendance numbers comparing the Super Junior Tag League from last year, this year. So I won't go through each individual night, but what it comes down to in 2023, just going from night one of the tournament to the final night of the tournament, we had 8,199 for the attendance. And then for this year, we had 7,817. Now, yes, that number is down. However, in 2023, they did have one extra night for the tournament because it was a single block and they had more teams. So they did more nights. They had one more extra night there. So if you subtracted that last night, it would be 7,432, which would then put this year up. So I think it's safe to say that this year is pretty much a little bit up comparing. If you just do 8 nights versus 8 nights, this year was up compared to last year.
So they did 9 nights the first last year and then 8 nights this time.
Yeah.
I mean, we can even just look at the average and that might tell us a little something there too. So, I mean, 8,199 divided by 9, you're looking at an average attendance of about 911 over the course of those shows. And then 7,817 divided by 8, you're looking at 977. So even that kind of shows you slight marked improvements on the average, show to show. They did better. So, that's an uptick in business. It's not world beating, but yeah, it's a positive one way or the other.
Yeah. So then for Super Junior Tag League, it's going to run through the results that kind of got us to where we were to the finals. I don't think we'll spend a lot of time talking about these matches. If there's any match you want to point out, Josh, that you thought was good, we can do that.
Yeah, I was going to keeping up with that was extremely difficult. And then it's like Power Struggle happens right at the very, very tail end within the same week. Like literally like Sunday is the last night of Super Juniors. And then not Super Juniors, but Super Junior Tag League. And then Monday, you've got the big show. And I was like, damn, how are we going to break all this down? Are we going in depth on the Junior Tag League? Like,
no, I think let's go over the results so we can kind of see how the points added up to where we got to the final and kind of see if we're off from last week. So
I don't remember what we said last week, so I can't claim to say. All I know is we thought War Dogs were definitely winning the shit, and they did not. So that I know that much.
Yeah, we were all in on War Dogs, but they did not get the win here. So start picking up from night 5. We had A block action. We had Ichiban Sweet Boys beating Tigre Suicida to get to 6 points. We then had the House of Torture team defeating LIJ to get to 6 points. And then we had the Skateboard Bros pulling the upset over the War Dogs, which brought Skateboard Bros up to 4 and leaving War Dogs at 6. So at the end of night 5, you had Ichiban Sweet Boys, House of Torture, and War Dogs all at 6 in the A block. Then you move over to night 6 was B block night. You had Ninja Mac and DKC. They defeated Roppongi Revice, so that brought both teams to 4 points. Then you had the Velocities defeating the Intergalactic Jet Setter, so a pretty big win there. Velocities beating the IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions, and so both teams being at 4 there. And then the last match of the league of that night was Catch 2-2, defeating Robbie X and Taiji Ishimori. So at the end of the night, you had all B block teams at 4 points, all teams having a chance to win.
Yeah, we pretty much predicted that block was going to be mostly parity based, and that, turned out to be the case. We did predict War Dogs were going to lay down to the Skateboard Bros. That's one I'm kind of proud of, because I don't know if other people were calling that or not. Maybe they were, but we were, independently calling that, which is nice. The only match of these 4 evenings, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like saying that that overall this wasn't good work or good matches. It was good, but the only one that really stood out to me over the whole course of these 4 nights was this main event with Robbie X and Taiji Ishimori against Catch 2-2. That one was maybe not the superlative level of match that we'd seen earlier on some of those Korakuen shows, but this was this is probably worth your time if you're trying to cherry pick and watch the good matches. That's one of them.
Yeah. So moving on to night 7, we had Tigre Suicida defeating the Skateboard Bros. So they're getting their first win there and only win of the tournament. So ending with 2 points, Skateboard Bros ending with 4. Then Ichiban Sweet Boys, they defeated the House of Torture, so they got up to 8 points. And then the main event was LIJ versus War Dogs. So Bushi and Hiromu, they beat the War Dogs, advancing their total of 4, leaving War Dogs at 6, putting Ichiban Sweet Boys as the only team with 8 points. And that gets Ichiban Sweet Boys to advance to the finals from the A block. Then night 8 from the B block, we had Bullet Club defeating the Velocity, so Bullet Club getting to 6. Then we had Catch 2-2 defeating Ninja Mac and DKC, also bringing Catch 2-2 to 6 points. And then we had the Jet Setters defeating Roppongi Revice and also getting them to 6 points, but due to the head-to-head and the tiebreakers, it ended up being Catch 2-2 that advanced to the finals due to the head-to-head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the second, back end half of the tournament was quite as strong as some of the upfront stuff, but it kind of makes sense. They were working a pretty hellacious schedule, doing a lot of smaller gym prefectures. So it was sort of expected that, like, while yes, a lot of the things that we've said positive about this tournament, like the work rate, the fun atmosphere, the flips, the high flying, all of that remained to be the same. Just, toned down just a notch. I've heard some shows go as far as to say that this is primarily a house show tournament, and I don't know if I fully agree with that, but there's an element of truth to that. You know what I mean? Where, like,
Yeah,
the only shows that were like stand out, you need to go out of your way to watch, were the big Korakuen shows, and then everything else was like, if you watched it, you got rewarded for it. The shows were highly entertaining. You didn't regret having watched them. It wasn't like you wanted to poke your eyes out or anything. I mean, it was enjoyable, But at the same time, because it was so condensed, I was like, who the fuck's wrestling who? There's a lot of dudes flipping around. Like, you start kind of losing track, even like, and I think we do a pretty good job on this show, keeping it together, having a good memory, you know, trying to keep notes. And like, I'm here, you know, this week being like, I don't know, that shit feels like a million years ago. Power Struggle was on Monday. Like, we're done with the Super Junior Tag League, you know?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of complaints about the tournament and the tour. I mean, overall, I thought it was a very fun tournament, like you said. I mean, at the end of the day, it is Road to. It's Road to Power Struggle. It's just kind of dressed up with the Super Junior Tag League. So at the end of the day, it is kind of a house show tour, but I don't know. I enjoyed the tournament. I know a lot of people are a little bit down on it, but I think, yeah, if you kind of watch night to night, if you had that availability, you were rewarded kind of following along. It kept it interesting going into the last night. There was a lot of teams alive in both blocks. There's different winning scenarios there. We had a potential for a three-way tie here in the B block. So yeah, I thought it was a fun tour to watch, but I could see people's complaints of it feeling more of really feeling that the Road to of it and the house show of it. But I mean, it is a Road to. It's Super Junior Tag League.
I don't know what there's to complain about. I mean, when you compare and contrast, well, first off, like, this is disenfranchised, you know, division. They don't get to headline or be front and center most of the time throughout the year. It's one of the two tours that they really get the spotlight. So there's that aspect of it. The work was really great there. I think there's a lot of positives coming out of this tour. If you're analyzing it in the lens of like trying to compare and contrast this to say like a G1 climax, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. But realistically, it's not on par or even comparable to a G1 climax or even, you know, even like a New Japan Cup. Cause look at the types of venues and, you know, top to bottom card that they're having for those types of shows. This was, like you mentioned, it was literally a Road to tournament. It was Road to Power Struggle / you know, Super Junior Tag League. And for people that were invested in the tag league, I don't know what there is to really truly complain about unless you just are setting yourself up to have unrealistic expectations. Maybe this is not a product that you're used to watching, or you've got, you know, some sort of idea or definition, but like, I've been watching this company for a long time, and you know, it's that time of the year. This when we do the junior tags, and you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that there might be some new viewers who are maybe not used to this style of tour. I mean, I think it gave you a reason to watch the Road Twos. You know, a lot of times people complain about the Road Twos. Oh, there's just a bunch of multi-mans. It's the same multi-man night after night. But I feel like having this tournament, I don't know, added a little bit juice to the tour, gave you a reason to watch every Road 2 show. There was something different happening every night, and it was building to the culmination of something. So, and I think it's probably one of the better Super Junior Tag Leagues that has happened.
This is the best one they've ever done.
Yeah.
Hands down. Like, there's no, in fact, I started like really kind of thinking about it, and like, it's probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I do kind of think that just per capita, with like the quality of what we saw here, this is comparable to most of the tournaments in New Japan this year. We're going to talk about the finals, but Jeremy, for me personally, this might be the best tournament final in New Japan all year long. Like,
yeah.
I take the Super Juniors Tag League final over the G1 final. And I loved I really, really liked the G1 final, but like, we'll get to it. But the only other tournament final we've had this year that I think is possibly and probably better would be like Goto and Tsuji in the New Japan Cup. But like, I think we're talking about matches that are close to being on par. That's
yeah.
That's how high I am on the fucking Tag League final, which they've never produced a Tag League final like that for the juniors. So
yeah,
you know, they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to Power Struggle. So this was this Monday, November 4th. There was a holiday in Japan, so they did a show on Monday instead of the traditional Sunday here. We were in the Edion Arena, Osaka, and so got some attendance numbers here. So this year, the attendance was 3,773. So compared to Power Struggle last year, same venue, 2023 Power Struggle was 4,046. The main event was Ospreay versus Umino for the IWGP UK/US title. And then comparing to other Osaka dates this year, so New Beginning in Osaka earlier in the year, we had 5,327, and you had the ZSJ versus Bryan Danielson match along with the Dog Pound Cage match. Then G1, nights 1 and 2 were there. Night 1 was 4,177 with the Shingo Naito match, and then night 2, 2,545, where you had the Tsuji David Finlay main event.
So, like a solid number in light of recent dates they've done, but not anything, to brag about, I would say, especially considering, I mean, when you're looking at last year's attendance, though, it's not that far off realistically. And I mean, that's in the midst of Ospreay having, the big monster UK run and everything like that. Obviously there wasn't a IWGP title, kind of bolstering that show, but this was only just slightly beneath that. But when you think about the other big shows they did this year, like G1 night 1 or New Beginning, quite a bit down a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm sure, not quite where they want to be, but it's a good number, but also it's not that 5,000 number they did in February for New Beginning, and a little shy of that opening night of G1 with Shingo and Naito, which, I think some of these numbers kind of will play into the questioning on some of the decisions they're going to be making heading into Wrestle Kingdom season. But let's jump into the show and go through these matches here. I don't think we need to spend a whole ton of time on some of the undercard stuff. There were some stories developed that we can touch on. So the show opened up. We had kickoff 6-man tag team match. We had Ninja Mac, the DKC, and Yo defeating Tigre Suicida and Shomakato in 6 minutes and 55 seconds. So this was just a nice way to get some of the teams, get Ninja Mac and DKC and Tigre Suicida on the card, and kind of a thank you for your service for the tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we can kind of treat some of this as almost like a retrospective on some of these guys' tournaments too. Nothing really of note here in the match itself that I can really point to. I will say, Jeremy, I thought this was a fantastic show, but, at close to 5 hours, I get it. It's your last big stop before the Tokyo Dome. You want to get everybody on there, especially the people that were on the tour. But, selfishly, I kind of wondered if some of these undercard matches did need to be here, even at, 6 and 7 minutes a pop. That adds up when you consider entrances, post matches. You're talking about, we added basically a whole nother hour, and like I could do with just the meat and potatoes personally. Like,
yeah, I mean, these guys got plenty of time to shine during the tournament. So I mean, did we really need this kickoff match? Not really, but it was fine. Good experience for Shomakato to be mixing up with some of these veterans in here. And
now, are we going to be talking at all further about any of these guys that were in the tag league, or is now the time to do that?
So if you want any other kind of final thoughts about either of these two teams.
I know we had a question. You might have missed it. We had a question in the Discord asking us about whether Ninja Mac was exposed here or not. I don't know if you missed that.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I probably did, because we actually had a lot of conversation going on in our Discord channel this week. So I was trying to grab some of the questions there, but I think I must have missed that one. I think it might have been Les Commission asking.
You might want to go back. There was some stuff in there.
Yeah, I tried to grab some stuff. I know like MJ had some questions. Some other people had some questions that I grabbed. But I think when people were there was kind of like a non-spoiler conversation happening on Monday about Power Struggle, where I think I might have missed that. But yeah, and I think it was West Commission. He was asking, was Ninja Mac exposed competing on the New Japan in New Japan?
Yeah, I was a little taken back by that question because I personally didn't. It didn't come across that way to me personally. I thought he fit. We talk about certain guys needing to get their sea legs. Oftentimes, that's that's code for they don't have confidence to shine. He seemed to have the confidence. I didn't see happy feet. He was in the right place at the right time almost all the time. He worked a large variety of styles with a variety of opponents all throughout the tournament. And I didn't see anything that indicated he couldn't hang. Chops looked crisp. High flying was good. Saw him do a lot of good grappling. I don't know if I would say like this is the breakout moment for him. I don't know if it's that, but this is the second tour they brought him back on. That's a good indication that he has impressed somebody and that they intend to continue bringing him back. So I think that's good. And I like this team with DKC. I think it's a positive for both guys in terms of like their future prospects.
Yeah. So the question was actually Kenta voting for Ron DeSantis in Discord and was mentioning between Best Super Juniors and Junior Tag League, has Ninja Mac been exposed? And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I will say maybe some of his stuff kind of in between his big spots is maybe not as tight as somebody who's come out the dojo who's been wrestling in Japan for a long time. I mean, Ninja Mac has not been wrestling in Japan that long. Like, I mean, I know he was in Noah for a while, but comparatively speaking to everybody else that's here, he has not been wrestling in Japan for a long time. And honestly, this is probably the biggest platform that he's wrestled for in his career.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think he did well, but yeah, I think there's probably some stuff that could be tightened up a little bit, but overall, I think he's over. Crowd connection, the flips and stuff he does is spectacular. That ninja special, cartwheel thing to the outside looks great every time. And so the only one knock I would have on him, I would say maybe his gear could be updated a bit.
The look is super Shindy-rific, but that can be updated. I mean, I know this for a fact that if a younger Rich Latta had decided to lace up the boots, he would have just basically been a light skinned version of Ninja Mac. Like this is the gimmick that Rich would have had for sure.
Yeah, and I know
it's Hanzo Man.
What'd you say?
It's Hanzo Man from the WCW games.
Yeah. And I know that Ninja Mac occasionally, I think, listens to this podcast. He leaves comments on our YouTube channel every once in a while on our show. So,
I kind of knew that, but also like, we gotten ourselves in trouble for. I'll bury a motherfucker. I don't give a fuck. Like,
yeah. And so not trying to bury the look, but I do feel like I think the gear can be upgraded. His mask looks incredible. But when you compare the quality of his mask to his like ninja getup, I think that could be upgraded.
Yeah, but it's probably also like, in the video games where you have like create a character and you can only afford in the early days to get like the base level, and like you need to get a little bit higher on that pay structure before you start breaking out, the Sasha Banks, Cody Rhodes level gear.
Yeah.
So there's probably some element to that as well. Plus, there is, and and I don't mean this in a negative way, but like, I like some grime in my wrestling, big fan of the Michinoku Pro early 2000s sort of shit. And those guys didn't look necessarily as flashy or flamboyant or, top promotion-esque the way that some of the New Japan juniors did. And they came in and got over and still, got in, like they were able to get over with their somewhat grimy Shindy look. So, it's not always the worst thing in the world to, have a DIY sense of self,
Yeah. And I also agree with your point with him and teaming with DKC. You mentioned it last week. It gives both guys kind of a purpose for being in New Japan. Because DKC is a guy that's hasn't gotten many tours under his belt, even though he's one of the trainers at the academy. And then Ninja Mac is, jumping from Noah to New Japan, trying to get, a full-time spot here. So I think for two guys that are really trying to, find their spot in New Japan, I think starting out with a junior tag team, kind of, we're always looking for new challengers in that division. So kind of having them as a unit there, I think is a good call.
Well, we all know, like, for instance, say like Kevin Knight, guy that's really broken out over the years and, gone up high in a lot of people's, talent checklists. But there was a time where like there was this raw talent element to the guy, but you kind of wondered and were like, what the fuck is New Japan going to do with him? They don't have a great track record with black guys. They don't have a great track record with their young lions coming out of this LA dojo. And then they teamed him with Kushida, and it was a really beneficial partnership in a lot of ways, because Kushida is a guy that they're not super high on for a variety of reasons ever since he came back. And, he's older, but he's been able to take that like player coach sort of necessary role and provided an avenue for Kevin Knight to kind of find himself and, become more palatable to the audience and sort of create that inroad. I think that there's something similar here. DKC's a really talented LA Dojo guy, but someone that, they brought in before. He's clearly talented, but doesn't have all the puzzle pieces to like maybe get over that hump. And then you got a guy like Ninja Mac, who I think has a lot of the things that DKC is missing, but maybe doesn't have that same pedigree of training, like under Shibata with the fundamentals. But all at the same time, both of their gimmicks, they kind of complement one another. They both have a point to prove. I think that that's a really beneficial team, even if it's, not super, super long term. But like we saw what, who was it initially? I'm forgetting, but Alex Zane. Who did Alex Zane originally tag with when he was in the juniors? Wasn't it Ace Austin?
It might have been, yeah.
And then Ace Austin turned on him and went Bullet Club?
Yeah, that sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of in some ways similar. And then, Monster Sauce has similar elements to what I'm talking about here. So, I know that New Japan's not a tag team territory per se, but, it really can help guys get their footing.
Yeah. And then Tiger Mask and Captain Suicida, thought was just a solid veteran tag team to have in the tournament. And I thought Captain Suicida looked really great. His gear here, the light up gear, was incredible. And like, I think he was kind of an underrated guy in this tournament.
Yeah. Last week I said of all the people that were coming on, I rated him maybe the lowest. I kind of feel like his output down the tail end of the tournament, he kicked it up to an even higher degree while everybody else was starting to kind of take it down a notch. And he was a guy that seemed hungry. There was one night, I don't remember what match it was, but he was in the light blue gear, kind of looking like Sin Cara. He did a tope suicida. Bro, he came this close to fucking ending it all. Like, he's so lucky that gravity, the timing, and whoever it was that was basing from, like, he was like an inch from off the ground. Like, it could have gone so bad. And he's not like a small junior either. He's kind of a beefy dude. And I'm like, he's out here killing himself for this little teeny tiny gymnasium. It's second match of the night. They don't give a fuck. But I liked what Rocky Romero said, where he kept mentioning that he could see him as being like a future Metalik or, Mascara Dorada 1.0 in the company. And I think that there is a lot of apt comparison there between those two guys.
Yeah. So moving on to the next match, we had the Bullet Club team. We had the War Dogs of Connors and Drilla teaming up with Gabe Kidd, Robbie X, and Taiji Ishimori, and they defeated the Jet Setters, the Velocities, and Katsuya Murashima in 6 minutes and 14 seconds. And poor Murashima, he got killed here. He literally got hit with every finisher under the sun, and then they pinned him. And
I was like, are they gonna pin this guy? Like, why did they kept hitting him with their fucking finishers? Like, it was kind of crazy, because you're used to seeing a young lion get beat by like one major signature move from a guy. So like not even their finisher. And instead these guys decided like that they had banked enough, specials in their special artillery and they needed to use them and unload them on the guy. So, they were boosting their spirit bars and they wanted to, use that shit. But, I think now is probably the time to kind of talk about two newcomers to the company. There's been a lot of discourse about Velocities and Robbie X and their inclusion in the tournament. And, I don't know, Jeremy, how are you feeling at the tail end of this tournament when it comes to those two acts?
Yeah, so I mean, I thought the Velocities were great. I thought they fit in like a glove. Kind of that high fly, energetic babyface kind of reminded me when the Young Bucks were in the division. So I thought they were definitely a great and welcome addition to the tournament and performed very well. I think the same thing with Robbie X. I thought he looked really impressive as well. Great intensity, great high flying maneuvers, and I would definitely want to see all three of these guys back in New Japan in the future.
Yeah, I definitely was impressed with Robbie X. I can't say personally that I felt super connected to his persona and his connection to Bullet Club, which is tenuous at best because we don't even know what the connections are between War Dogs and OGs and House of Torture and how he fits into all this. But, for the time being, he's going to get to sell some Bullet Club shirts and maybe put, his own stamp on having a Robbie X version of the shirt in the UK, which is cool. But it did seem to be, to me, that while he was impressive in ring, I don't know if he really made his connection with the crowd while he was there. And in the States, that seems to really be the case where people are sort of wondering what the hook is. And, I think in 2024, you can't just put the black and white shirt on a guy anymore and say they're part of this group and then that be enough to get them over. There's got to be something beyond just the flips and something beyond just the click. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the jet setters, with the Velocities, I don't get the ballyhoo. Like, there's a lot of people out there that are, I don't know, I guess maybe had some sort of higher proper expectations for them. And mind you, they didn't come out the way that, say, like Aussie Open did when Aussie Open first got here and just revolutionized. They didn't do that. That's for sure. But fuck, they're so like good. They're so good. And this reminded me in some ways of like, remember like the Jonathan Gresham spot in Super Juniors where like he comes in, doesn't get any main events. He's always like second or third on the lineup. He's going to get sub 15 minutes, but he killed it in that time. Like there's not enough time given to him to really like knock it out of the park. And there wasn't the expectation for him to steal the show because he's not the main event. So it's like work up to this level within this spot on the card that we're giving you and do what you can with it. I felt like that's where the Velocities were like kind of slotted to, they got some good wins. They got a lot of great experience, good looks. I'm hoping management was high on them because I was, but again, I'm hearing a lot from the fan base, a lot of people that, just for whatever reason, we're down on them. I'm a little perplexed by it, but as time goes on, I'm finding myself more and more disconnected from what I hear some of the Western audience, say about different acts in New Japan. Like, there's a lot of people out there that don't like Cal Newman, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't get that.
Yeah.
Some of the people they do like, I'm like, I don't know about that one.
Well,
so I don't know.
And I think the audience or the office does have confidence in these guys because they let them beat the Jet Setters on second to last night of the tournament. So beating the current tag champion, I think is a pretty big deal. And so I feel like that leaves the door open for them to come back. And then of course there's always the Tamashii shows that they're doing that will kind of keep them connected somewhat in this New Japan ecoverse.
I hope that they don't get relegated back to Tamashii. Like I would love for them to be guys that, come back. But we'll see. I mean, you know how it is. If you're a tag team, you want to be here, you got to get adopted into some sort of faction. You can't just exist on an island unto yourself. So for Robbie X, we'll probably see him again. He's a Bullet Club guy, but like for them, we don't really know what their affiliation is. I don't know. I mean, do you see any open avenue for a junior tag to just get plug and played into any faction here?
I feel like Chaos could use a junior tag a long term, because I don't know how long Rocky's going to be there.
Do they fucking exist? I don't even know if Chaos exists, man. That's the problem with that one. Like, who's the leader? Who is the leader of Chaos right now, Jeremy?
Goto.
And don't say Goto. When did that happen? When was there the backstage comment where Goto was appointed?
He just grabbed the reins. Like, he didn't need to cut a promo. He didn't need to be like TJP and claim the captain. Like, he did it. New Japan Cup Finals. This man was balling out in the G1. Great tag team Yoshihashi. Like, he just stepped up.
You're making shit up. This never happened.
He did step up this year.
He stepped up for himself, not for the crew.
Put the team on his back.
No, he didn't. He stepped over the team and ascended alone on his own. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they would go. You know, we've got a junior team, couple juniors down in TMDK. You know, that might be a fit, but probably not. They've already got their juniors. I don't know where they would go.
Yeah,
United Empire's got juniors. That's what would have to happen. There needs to be an open spot for both guys to come in, and that's the hard part.
Yeah, and we've been saying for a while it's time for a faction shakeup. So yeah, if some kind of new faction got created, that'd be a great opening. But I mean, I could see them being brought back as one-off tag challengers in the beginning of next year. And who knows, maybe they could even be in Best of Super Juniors as singles in 2 different blocks.
Potentially, yeah.
So moving on to the next matchup, we had LIJ, Bushi, Hiromu, Naito, and Yota Tsuji. They defeated the Skateboard Bros, Hanma, and Toru Yano in 7 minutes and 2 seconds.
Yeah, this, again, another early preview tag. Kind of fun, good way to get, you know, the LIJ on the card. But the big thing here was kind of seeing Hiromu and Naito get a big victory, and they've sort of been alluding to something down the line between Naito and Hiromu all throughout Super Junior Tag League. Naito was coming out in full garb and kind of overseeing the Hiromu Bushi tag matches, which is not really common for his character or for that group, really. And you kind of had to wonder, like, what is this about necessarily? Ultimately, though, it seems to be that they were able to cohesively exist as a team here. They picked up a big win. And in the backstage comments, they kind of confirmed that we're going to see Hiromu Naito teaming up in the World Tag League, which is, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, and as of this recording, we don't have the full lineup for World Tag League. But like you mentioned, that backstage promo, they pretty much, confirmed that Naito and Hiromu will be teaming up for that league. And I think that's how we're going to get the build to them facing off on January 4th. We have a question here from Les Commission 7252. Do you think New Japan are denying the long-awaited eventual match between Naito versus Hiromu because they wanted to headline a show or need a title involved? It just feels like another situation similar to Shibata versus Kenta, but it was never set in place because New Japan are still butthurt with Shibata going in for himself 2 years ago. Are they saving the match from when Naito retires?
I don't know. Is everything confirmed for the Dome after the press conference from yesterday?
No, there's only a handful of matches confirmed for Wrestle Kingdom.
I feel pretty strongly that the only reason these two guys are teaming together in this match is to set up a match between them at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, it's very weird to be going into November and December, and neither one of these guys are penciled in for a big match yet for the Tokyo Dome. So, yeah, I think it's no coincidence that, Naito's been coming out and watching Hiromu. It's no coincidence that they won this match here and then they cut the promo backstage. So, yeah, I highly expect that they will be in World Tag League. Obviously, I don't think they're going to win it. I think they're going to get very close, and there might be some miscommunication which causes them from winning, and then you get the maybe a little bit of heat, and you get the official matchup.
Last year, one of the big stories, or two of the big stories, and the highlight going into World Tag League was the team of Narita and Shota Umino. We saw how that one ended. A lot of people thought that they were going to win and like go on and challenge for the tag titles. They ended up splitting up, and that kind of kicked off the whole Shota Umino versus House of Torture, never ending, feud that has pretty much led to the Tanahashi Evil match that we're getting this year. And then the other one was, Suzuki and Nagata kind of getting their send off and everything like that. They didn't do super hot in the tournament either. Maybe they'll subvert expectations. I mean, maybe we're wrong, and this is all so that we can see this team from LIJ challenge for the world tag team titles, but that seems like a waste to me, and maybe not the best use of your top two, of your literal top two draw stars in the company. And I think that this is a way for them to build to that match, because they haven't built to it thus far. And between this and then, the whole thing with the never title challenge against Hinare with Hiromu earlier in the year, and Hiromu pinning Naito in that all LIJ match earlier, the 6-man tag earlier this year, and everything like that. Like, this just seems like another chapter into what is probably going to be one of the top build matches for the Tokyo Dome with Naito and Hiromu. So yeah, I don't think they're holding off on it at all. I think they're doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, based on what the main event is for the show, like you need Naito and Hiromu in a singles match against each other to really help that show draw, which we'll talk about that main event. So yeah, I mean, I can't see what else they would be doing if they're not facing each other. Like, what can you set up in such little time if this World Tag League is not used to set this singles matchup?
Yeah.
So then, following that, we had Shota Umino defeating Sonata in six. Actually, skip the Hell of Torture match. We had Evil and Ren Narita.
Go ahead, we can skip it.
We had Evil and Ren Narita defeating Tanahashi and Boltin Oleg.
A lot of interference from House of Torture. This was basically just a setup match to kind of get some heat on House of Torture, set up a sort of a vengeance angle for Tanahashi going into the Dome. We talked extensively the last few weeks about how Hantai and Tanahashi specifically have just whooped the ass of House of Torture time and time again in recent big matches. So, it kind of seemed like it was coming due for some sort of victory, and Ren Narita cheated here. They got the win, did a beat down after the bell, big heat angle.
Yeah. Also, we should note that Boltin Oleg was replacing El Phantasmo here. It came out last week that El Phantasmo has something like a cancerous tumor that he needs to take care of, and he's going to be out indefinitely. So, prayers out to ELP. Hopefully that cancer goes away soon and he can get back New Japan. So this is a short switch up here of Boltin coming in.
Yeah, most definitely. That's never something that you want to hear. He seems to be, at least from what we've seen on social media, in good spirits and optimistic, which is great, but at the same time, that's a very serious thing and obviously very scary. We have our best wishes and thoughts and prayers and all that going out to El Phantasmo, and we hope to see him back. But for the time being, he is, out indefinitely. Silver lining, you never want to just base, pro wrestling based off of real life things, but we've seen where real life can imitate art imitates life, and we've seen people come back from injuries and sicknesses and it be a benefit to them in some way. So maybe there's a little bit of a shining light or like a silver outline there. We'll see how it plays out, but we wish him all the best.
Yeah. So then following that, we had Shota Umino defeating Sonata in 16 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yeah, this was really interesting because we knew going in that this was very likely some sort of de facto number one contenders eliminator style match for the world title, right? Mm-hmm. Sonata just challenged for that title and failed. After having failed a few times this year to try and reclaim the belt. At the same time, like we've been seeing some of the fallout from some of the Shota Umino rejection. That wasn't so much on display during this match. The crowd seemed to be more on the side of Umino going into this contest. It was surprising that we were on the 5th match of the night on a 10 match or 11 match card. Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah. 11 match card, when normally a match like this would be in at least the top 4 or top 2, given the gravity of it all, but they really spaced it out by like quite a bit. I thought the contest was good. I wouldn't say like very, very good, but it was, it got very good towards the end and kind of outperformed some of my low expectations, but for two guys that needed to probably have like a breakout level style performance, this wasn't quite that. They didn't really get to those kinds of levels. They pretty much performed to what you would expect a top end Umino Sonata match to look like. Like they hit those high levels, but 3.5 maybe is where, a pretty good match. That's where we're getting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about 3.5 too. Yeah, I thought the match was fine. I thought ultimately the purpose of this match was to kind of start playing the seed with Sonata. He was way more aggressive in this match. He was throwing Umino into the chairs. He was doing closed fists. He was just being way more aggressive than he usually is. Maybe kind of leaning back more towards that initial heel LIJ version when he came in. Was being very aggressive and kind of. The commentary talked about a lot of the frustrations he's been having, and so he was kind of letting that all out there, and that kind of lost control there and allowing Umino to get the win, hitting the Death Rider on him. So Umino gets the win and in this kind of de facto number one contendership, and Sonata, he's left there laying hand over his face, upset, frustrated, which we would see play out later on in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely also harkened back to the performance that he had against Zack Sabre Jr. in the UK, where there was definitely a much more aggressive kind of black hat side to him in that match. I mean, obviously we'll get to it, but we've alluded to it on the show. We'd heard rumors for a while, but it was such a long time ago that it started to kind of feel like maybe this wasn't actually happening. And in that UK match with Zach, I just sort of thought that Sonata was playing a de facto heel because that's what was required of him in that environment. But then they continued to expound upon it in this match. And like looking back, you're like, oh, I'm seeing the seeds there for what's to come. Like he was definitely much more aggressive, much more heelish in nature. And it kind of makes sense in hindsight.
Yeah. And before we go to the next match, I did miss the angle at the end of the House of Torture match. So at the end, you had Narita, he laid out Bolton Oleg, and then Oiwa jumped into the ring to confront him, and then you had Jeff Cobb coming into the ring. So Oiwa and Cobb were, both trying to challenge for the TV title. They end up fighting each other, and Narita kind of slips away. And so we know it's confirmed now. It is going to be a 3-way at the Dome. Narita defending against Ryohei Oiwa and Jeff Cobb. And so that will take us to the IWGP Tag Team title match. We have new champions. We have Great Okan and Hanare defeating TMDK's Mikey Nickel and Shane Hayes to become the new IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions.
Can I say something that's going to be kind of mean?
Sure.
TMDK's title run, maybe the most disappointing New Japan title run in modern memory.
Yeah, I mean, for being double champions, and I mean, I feel like the TMDK faction's very hot right now with Zach being the front man, Wang G1 being the champion. It just kind of felt like, yeah, the run was just kind of there.
Considering the level of talent that those guys are and the hype and the weight and the expectations for, a few years now since they've been with the company, where it's like, when are we going to see them finally put the belt on the most decorated team that's never won the belts? And then they finally do. And don't get me wrong, it's not like there weren't good matches, but I don't know if I could even call any of their title defenses great, which is a shame, just considering like how revered and respected that team is. In this match, I think that there was sort of a representation of what we have seen from this team for a while now. On the commentary, they talked about how it was almost like you were seeing two different matches take place. And, when you had when you had Cobb not Cobb. What's wrong with me?
Hanare.
When you had Hanare in there with Mikey Nichols, it was hard fought. It was, tooth and nail, nose to the grind. I mean, we saw fucking Mikey Nichols split his wig open off of a shoot headbutt, which was disgusting.
Oh, dude, the clunk, that sound made from that headbutt, man, they just echoed throughout that arena how hard he hit Hanare, and yeah, his head immediately split open after doing that headbutt. I got kind of it reminded me of Shibata doing it to Okada. I was like, dude, what is this man doing to his life?
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty bad idea, and they shouldn't have done that, but they did. And, part of the reason why is we've seen all throughout this run where, say what you will about Mikey Nichols, I think a lot of people do consider him to probably be, maybe not quite as naturally talented, or for whatever reason. I think that most people kind of favor Shane Hayes over Mikey Nichols for a variety of reasons, but all throughout this run, it's been Mikey Nichols as the guy that's been really busting his ass. And then in this match, you kind of saw Shane Hayes, like he's going through the motions, like he's working, he's doing his shit, but like, he's not, and I'm not saying he should do this, but like he clearly wasn't like busting his wig open for love of the game the way that Mikey Nichols was. And, I've heard the criticism out there that there's a lackadaisical or nonchalantness to Mikey Nichols, and maybe that comes down to the realization that his time with those aspirations of being in some of the bigger companies like WWE have kind of come and gone, and this is the best it's going to get. So instead of like being hungry and trying to make the most of it, it's sort of like, just punching the clock, essentially. And there are people that feel that way. And, now that I've kind of heard that criticism and I've sort of paid a little bit more attention, I'm like, there's got to be some sort of missing element here as to why this run hasn't been quite as good as you would hope and expect it to be. And I mean, I can't necessarily say it's the level of talent that they're going up against. Not like they're being dragged down by incompetent wrestlers, and certainly not Mikey Nichols. The guy's fucking killing himself every time they go out there. Like literally, what's the common denominator,
Yeah, I just feel like Shane Hayes, he's had a lot of his big runs. He was in NXT, WWE, and, I feel like this is now just kind of a fun time for him. Kind of maybe sees it as kind of low pressure. Just kind of doing, teaming with his good mate, having a good time, and kind of maybe leaning into that hysterical moniker a little bit too much. But yeah, I do think overall that where they're at right now, the team is just not where they were in the past. You look at some of their previous stuff, even NXT, like I know they weren't really pushed as like a top tag team in NXT, but they had some really fun matches, even against like the Authors of Pain. And they really showed out during that NXT run. But yeah, here they're kind of finally, we've been saying for years, like, man, why haven't they put the belts on these guys? Why aren't they pushing these guys? And now they're finally doing it. And it's like, okay, like what's going on?
Yeah. And I mean, if that's just the reality for them, that's fine. I can't begrudge them, but at the end of the day, this is a large part of what we do as podcasters and reviewers for New Japan is we sort of assess the quality of what we're seeing and how it's serving the consumer. And, I think that Zach said Noah trash. I think that there's a certain level of expectation that we sort of have come to expect, not only from the working style of New Japan, but also this team in particular. So it would almost be unfair to not point out that the work isn't quite what it used to be, and it's just a fact of life. I mean, it also happens. Guys get older. I mean, we've talked about it with other guys from Noah, like Kenta, for instance, he's not quite the guy that he used to be. So this stuff does happen, but the match was good. I thought the blood really did ramp things up quite a bit. Okan and Hanare, they're just another kind of extension of that long lineage of dominant heavyweight tag teams coming out of TMDK prior to the Aussie Open era, when you sort of had Hanare and Cobb and Okan, and now Okan and Hanare. Like, to me, they're almost like an unofficial trio, and they just plug and play with one another, kind of like the Outsiders or the Freebirds. And to me, that team's all just one. They're like the New Day. It is, which version of those three guys do you like best?
Yeah. I thought they looked really good here. So yeah, down to the closing stretch of the match, TMTK, they were kind of in control. They had a double team suplex on Okan for a near fall. They hit the tank buster for a near fall, but Hanare made the save. Nichols hit a blue thunder bomb on Hanare, but Hanare kicked out. And then Hanare went for the claw. Nichols hit a standing powerbomb for another near fall. And then Hanare and Okan hit their Imperial Drop combo on Nichols. 1, 2, 3. They're the new champion. So yeah, we accurately called this last week. Felt like this would be a good spot for Okan and Hanare to win these titles heading into World Tag League. Especially when a lot of people were asking, what do you do with Hanare after losing the Never title? And so I think this is kind of a great reset for him. It kind of guarantees him a spot at the Dome, both him and Okan in the tag title picture. So they'll go into World Tag League as the champions. And also, kind of like I was thinking, we've seen Gato loves a pattern of taking the belts off people right before a league to potentially have them do well in the league. It looked like it was going to be that way for War Dogs, but they ended up losing. So I could see TMDK either winning tag league, because pretty much TMDK has won all the tournaments this year, or they come very close.
They're not winning tag league. and here's what I'll base it off of. And I could be wrong here, but this, generally speaking, I'm going to be right. How often do we ever see them fly in TMDK for the Dome? We don't normally see them in that Rambo. We don't normally see them on the Tokyo Dome show. Maybe they have in some capacity, but they've been with the company for quite a few years now. And like, we routinely do see them in World Tag League and then not at the Dome. So I'm like, that's why they took the belts off them. That's to send them packing so they can go back to Australia. And some other teams could be working the Dome. It's not going to be them.
Yeah. Well, we'll see as the World Tag League announcements, I think, are going to come out later this week. But yeah, so good matchup here. Could have been better, but I think the right team won here, Okan and Hanare, and hopefully they get a nice little run with the titles, because I feel like they're two very talented guys that clearly they're not really being pushed as singles right now, even though Okan is KOPW. So I think a great way to kind of keep them hot right now is put them in as a tag team and let them run with the tag team titles. So following that, we had the Best Bout Machine, Kenny Omega, making his return to a New Japan ring. So Kenny comes out talking a lot of Japanese. He translates it into his own English, and he's talking about meeting up with Tanahashi. He said he's ready to wrestle, but he really wants to wrestle a young wrestler on the New Japan roster. And he's talking about being sick and being better, and he's going to wrestle again. And he talked about New Japan is still his home. Japan's still his home. New Japan is still king of sports. It's still the best wrestling on the planet. And he wants to prove that on January 5th. And so I know there were a lot of rumors based on the initial kind of interviews with Tanahashi that it would have been Tanahashi and Kenny versus Young Bucks on January 5th, but it seems like they're going in a different direction. Later on in the show, we would hear that he would get into a backstage altercation with Gabe Kidd, and there was an interview that came out last week where Kenny was kind of burying Gabe Kidd, not saying his name correctly. So Gabe Kidd obviously not taking that lightly, and so there was a backstage altercation there. So it seems like the direction's going to be Gabe Kidd versus Kenny Omega on January 5th.
Could any of this have anything to do with the Cricket's response to the announcement of the Young Bucks returning to New Japan at the last big show?
I don't think so. I feel like it could.
You sure about that?
Yeah, because I feel like even though the Bucks didn't get a good reaction that night, like I think in the Tokyo Dome, like they would build it enough, I think, to get a good reaction. I think people would be really into seeing like Kenny and Tanahashi team. Like I think that wouldn't be an issue. I think, at least from what I'm hearing, Nick Jackson actually has a shoulder injury that he's been dealing with. They just came off the belts in AEW, dropped the belts at Private Party last week, and they're going to be off TV for the next.
Is that official?
What, the injury?
Yeah.
AEW hasn't said anything. Other outlets have been mentioning that. I think Dave mentioned it this week as well.
I was just saying, like, you don't want to get aggregated. I said some shit about the Bucks. I've been aggregated when I talk about the Bucks, so you just never know.
Well, this news has already been aggregated. Other sites have picked it up, kind of mentioning, that it seems like Nick Jackson might be hurt. Bucks are going to be off TV for a while, so I don't know if he's going to be ready for January 5th, or there's just plans change, or was the whole Kenny Tanahashi thing one of those things where, like, they said, yeah, we want to team up, but that was actually never the plan. They're just kind of like being friendly, talky. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned before how, during Tanahashi's, retirement speech, all the stuff that he said that he wants to do is like, I want to do this stuff, but he didn't say he is or promises he's going to do it. So it could very, very well likely be what you're saying there. Kenny came out, terrible hair. Again, always one of the worst, one of my favorite wrestlers with the worst hair. But, something that people don't generally talk too much about is Kenny's terrible style. And this stuff almost kind of gets overshadowed by how great of gear that Kenny typically does have and how great his like ring entrance attires are and everything like that. But like his street clothes, what he wears day in and day out, Kenny has routinely, historically, always had very, very bad style, and he's always on the outside looking in when it comes to that shit. And he showed up and he was wearing, the mid 2010s skinny jeans with the patches and the cuts, and I'm like, dog, like I don't know if no one told you, but like those, you can't be wearing that shits anymore. That means you're old. You gotta wear the baggy shits now. You gotta look. Basically, you need to look like Matt Hardy in 1999 when it comes to your pants attire. Otherwise, you're old. Like that, it's come that full circle. So, yeah, he missed that part, but got a good reaction. I was sort of expecting the angle to play itself there. It didn't. Did hear some backlash and controversy from a variety of different sources about, Kenny's return being in New Japan, his first appearance post injury and sickness, not being in the AEW ring, not being on cable television, but instead being in New Japan. I've kind of got some mixed thoughts there. I do think on the one hand, if it was a really, really big deal to New Japan, his access were over the aughts. I don't think that this is going to necessarily hurt when he does come back to AEW necessarily or anything like that. Like, no, most of the people that will see him on TV won't even know that he showed up in New Japan. Same time, if AEW really cared about Kenny Omega as like a big draw and a big star, they wouldn't have let him do this. And it just kind of tells you and shows you, again, a long track record of how they actually feel, how Tony Khan actually feels about Kenny Omega. Like, for instance, if this was CM Punk, this shit would not have been happening. Like, no way, no how. Never in a million years.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, like, Wrestle Dynasty is, there's going to be a big AEW involvement with it. It's the second night at the Dome. Like, you want that to sell and do as well as night one. And so, Kenny's the biggest guy that represents both companies. So you need to kind of kick the angle off now. Like, they're not going to wait till like World Tag League Finals for Kenny to come out and set up his Wrestle Dynasty match.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there, Jeremy. And there's definitely, timing, elements to that and some truth. But at the same time, I don't know how big the AEW element is in fact going to be. We'll talk about why that is later at the end of this review. But like, I don't know if we're going to see a whole host of major AEW stars, on the show. Like, and God knows that they have taken so many of the top stars from New Japan that if they wanted to, they don't even have to send all of them, but like, they could send Jericho, they could send Mox, they could send Will Ospreay, they could send Danielson, they could send Jay White. Like, the list goes on and on. But I don't know if they're going to send any of those dudes. We're getting Ricochet, we're getting Kenny Omega. That's not necessarily Tony Khan's favorite toys, if you know what I'm saying.
I don't know. Kenny, I know that there has been issues with his presentation, not pushed like a super ultra mega star like he should be. But he's still one of the top guys in the company, top draw, top TV draw, top attendance draw. And Ricochet is a guy that they
don't book him like it.
They don't, but he still is.
They don't use him like it.
Yeah.
I don't think Tony Khan, I don't think he loves Kenny Omega at all. Like, I just don't. And I haven't for a while,
Yeah.
Otherwise he would have been booked like fucking Hulk Hogan, and he never was.
Yeah. I didn't have a problem with Kenny coming back here instead of being coming back in AEW. I guess the story's not quite there yet for him to come back, and the Bucks just went off TV, and I think they're going to be building to Omega Okada at some point for a upcoming AEW show. So I'm not sure when he will come back to AEW. I'm sure maybe after this pay-per-view cycle with Full Gear, but I thought it was fine having him here and getting a nice pop for New Japan and starting to build the Wrestle Dynasty show.
That's another one right there. The fact that we have a partnership between AEW and New Japan. They took New Japan's biggest star of the last 20 years, the biggest fucking draw, the biggest star that they've had in forever. And he's partnered with their company, and he's the biggest draw that could possibly come back, and he's just not going to. Like, that's terrible. The idea that Okada is not coming back for this Dome show, and I know that there's a myriad of reasons, and a lot of people kind of figure that this was the case, but like, just the simple dollars and cents of it is stupid. It is stupid that Okada is not working the Dome when he'd be the biggest difference maker of anybody that works in that company.
Yeah, there's still time to slot him in. There's only one.
That's just not happening. He don't want to work the Dome. He could come back and just, job Great O'Khan if that's what they really wanted to do, but they won't.
Yeah. I had a couple questions here. Doc in Discord says, who does Tanahashi fight now on January 5th?
I don't know. Zach says maybe Okada's scared. Yeah, he's gonna get jumped by all the
young guys,
the Reiwa guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to do cross promotion, who would you want to see Tanahashi face on the AEW roster? I mean, you could do something like, I don't know, Claudio, Pac. I think would be an interesting matchup there.
There's basically nobody in that company that I would like to see Tanahashi wrestle in a singles environment in today's day and age, outside of maybe Kenny Omega.
Yeah, Zach says Garcia. Have Tanahashi try to do the dance again.
There's nothing there. Like, let's do a feel good tag team match. That's where we're at with Tanahashi at this point. Like, I don't think there's a dream main, singles match for Tanahashi with that roster. Maybe we could do something fun, including CMLL. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. I don't think he should do a singles match. Or if he does, there's not anything that's like appetizing to me.
Yeah. MJ said it's a tag match with Tana and Kenny off. What is going on? And kind of like I was talking about earlier, it seems like Nick Jackson's potential alleged shoulder injury might have changed some plans, or maybe this wasn't the plan at all, and maybe that was just something that was just thrown in that interview.
I just think it's weird they got that non-reaction and then suddenly his shoulder hurts, Suddenly they can't make the show. It reminds me of that time when Sean lost his smile and he couldn't drop the title. He had to go away.
Maybe.
Very convenient.
Maybe the documents they were shredding last week were the Wrestle Dynasty contract, and they were like, we ain't going.
I heard about that. That sounded hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So Kenny Omega back. Gonna be it hasn't been officially announced yet, but clearly based off of the post match or the backstage angle fighting Gabe Kidd, seems like he's gonna be facing Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty. I did think it was pretty funny. There were some comments from Kenny in Tokyo Sports, and he was like, yeah, I attacked first, but I was doing it out of self-defense. He was like,
he alluded to Brawl Out.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out and how the rest of Wrestle Dynasty will shape up.
I don't know. Does he have does that violate his NDA?
Maybe not. I mean, he didn't really they showed the tape on TV after that. So, I mean, they've kind of mentioned it since then.
I just wonder. It's a fine line, Is he gonna have to, run it with Punk again because he disrespected him in the Tokyo newspapers here just through inference,
He might have to.
And how does Larry the dog feel about this? Because we know that Kenny saved Larry the dog during that interaction, and that's the most important thing. So that's what if they ever had a match, it's going to be for custody of Larry.
Has there ever been a dog heel turn before? How did Larry turn on Punk?
I don't know. I remember when Boss Man fed Al Snow his dog Pepper.
Oh man,
that's one of the most fucked up stories.
Yeah. So following the Kenny angle, we had the Super Junior Tag League 2024 final match. The Ichiban Sweet Boys, Kosei Vegeta, and our good friend Robbie Eagles, they defeat Catch 22, Francesco Akira, and TJP in 15 minutes and 20 seconds.
Yeah, man. When it was announced that it was going to be these two teams going head to head, I was not in any. I know that this isn't what we predicted or saw coming down the pipeline, and we'll talk about the Fallout post match because we still pretty much wound up where we thought that this tournament was heading anyways. So, good on us. But when it came to the finals being between these two individual teams, Sweet Boys and Catch 22, it was like, on paper, that might be the most appetizing of finals of any of the teams. I just didn't expect that it would actually happen. And it's a good story. You know, you got Catch 22, the returning champions, defending against the Ichiban Sweet Boys. And I really, one thing, no ass swing whatsoever. Not a single, mention of the ass swing. TJP, new gear. His gear is fucking raw. I don't know. Different gears work for certain guys, but like the biker shorts work for that dude. Definitely. But bro, okay, remember when you first saw Okada and Omega in the Dome and it got to like the 35-minute mark or whatever, and they're like 30 minutes, and you're like, this match has been going for 40 minutes? Like, how the fuck? Like, it felt like it was so condensed. It felt like we got there in no time. This match was like the opposite of that. And in a great way. It sounds bad, but let me explain. The work rate was so high, and they did so much shit. And not just, like people are always like, oh, they're working too fast. They're doing too much. Everything meant something. Everything had a point. There was a reason for it all happening, but it was super fucking hyper fast. When you want to talk about like work rate in the classical sense, which literally meant how much activity and moves are taking place, this has to be one of the highest work rate matches I have ever seen in my entire life. When they got like to the 10 or 15 minute mark, I was shocked, bro. I thought that this was closer to like a 25 or 30 minute match. That's how epic and how much stuff had happened. And I'm like, they did all of that in this amount of time. Like, this is a masterclass. I honestly think this is going to sound sacrilegious to some people, but maybe just as good or even potentially better than any Young Bucks match that I can recall in New Japan, outside of like maybe, the classic Long Beach match with the Golden Lovers. But when you talk about like their junior tag stuff, I don't know, man. Like, not only do I think we saw a tag match of the year contender, I think we saw a match of the year contender. I'm very close. I'm above 4.5. I'm like close to like 4 3/4 on this match. And I rarely go that high on shit like this, especially when it's the juniors and it's the tag. But like, I do feel like this is one of the best tag team matches I've seen. Like, not in a long time, not like this year. I'm talking like period. I don't know who the fuck laid this out. I don't know how they remembered to do everything that they did, but it was just so frantic, and everybody was always in the right place. It like combined the highest elements of like a Friday night Arena of Mexico spot fest with like the best psychology of a Southern style tag, and mixing that with the indies. It's truly a hybrid, like Dragon Gate style match that's just boom, 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 boom. But the emotion is there. The crowd is rocking. The elements are all there. The cutoffs, the comebacks, like the near falls, like the drama. This is a match that should have been very, very good and greatly excelled above that. I think the scores that I'm seeing on Cage Match don't reflect what I saw. I'm shocked at how much I love this match. Like, I don't know if it's the match of the night. It probably is. Yeah. This is the match of the night. Like, I don't know. I was blown away here.
Yeah, this match was great. It's not a surprise to me why you love it, because it was great. And like literally from the opening bell, it was balls to the wall. You had Vegeta and Akira doing flip dives, right from the beginning of the match. And they just kind of kept that pace. But like you mentioned, it was a mix of that. You kind of that, your junior tag style pace. There's a lot of big high spots, but then there was also kind of that Southern tag formula, because they were getting the heat on Vegeta. And so Vegeta, that kind of seems to be the formula where, teams will get the heat on him, beat him down, and he has to tag Robbie Eagles in, and then he'll eventually come back in and kind of make a big save. And so they've really been helping getting him over as kind of this undercut or bayface role. So yeah, I thought that was really great in the match. And yeah, just the sequences and the near falls, like they just absolutely killed it. Towards the end of the match, you had an accidental collision between Vegeta and Eagles, which sent Vegeta to the floor, and then they hit the leading tower on Robbie Eagles. Vegeta made a save, and then Akira accidentally super kicked TJP, which allowed Eagles to get a near fall. TJP did a roll up for a near fall. And then Eagles got the control back with another roll up and pinned TJP with that roll up. And yeah, it was just kind of this fast boom, boom, boom action. They're hitting all these great moves. And, even Ichiban Sweet Boys, they've come up with a lot of new double team moves, which are kind of versions of Nichols and Haste moves. They have their own version of the Thunder Valley they did. They have their own version of the Tank Buster, which I think they call the Sweet Buster. And so they just went out there and had an excellent match in 15 minutes. And yeah, it was super great. I would put this right up there with the main event as match of the night on this show.
Yeah, I love this match. I think it's a masterclass. One of the best tag matches I can recall in recent memory. And I mean, that's me like putting it on the same level as like say for instance that FTR versus Gun Club match that was 2 out of 3 falls that went like the hour. Like this was like as good as that, but like better. RLPW wrestling all day long, like top to bottom. Like, yeah, this was a breakout. This felt like, how good we know these 4 guys are, but we don't always get to see it. It felt like they got the like safety guards taken off and we're told, do whatever the fuck you want to do here tonight. And like, we got to see them showcase everything that they're capable of. And yeah, just fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, excellent matchup here. And then in the post match, you had Ichiban Sweet Boys celebrating their championship win. And then you had the champions come out, the Jet Setters, and they come out and say that they accept Ichiban Sweet Boys challenge. But then Kushida also calls back Catch 2-2 into the ring and says that they want them at Wrestle Kingdom also because they beat them in the tournament. And so it looked like we were going to get a 3-way. And then the War Dogs came out and jumped all 3 teams and talked about how dominant they've been in the division and that they will see them at Wrestle Kingdom. And they threw up the 2 sweets. And then it was confirmed we are getting a 4-way for the junior tag title. So Jet Setters will defend against Ichiban Sweet Boys, War Dogs, and Catch 2-2.
Yeah, so I mean, this post-match angle wasn't at all surprising. The only thing that was surprising about it was at first I thought that they were leaving out War Dogs entirely, and I'm like, man, the direction of this all seems so weird. Why were they carrying those white belts around if they're not gonna, be involved? But then ultimately it came full circle and it's like, okay, this is the 4-way. I don't know if this is the 4-way I said we should get when I was doing my predictions, but it's probably pretty close to what I had said.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was a 4-way that we thought if they were doing a 4-way, what was going to happen.
So yeah, I think it's really, really good here. Earlier you did kind of bring up that TV title post-match angle, and we kind of just jumped over that. I was a little perplexed at that one because it felt like they're splitting the attention for that match between who's in that one? It's
Oiwa and Cobb.
It's Oiwa and Cobb, and like I was a little bit excited when it was Oiwa was the new challenger, but then Cobb came in and I'm like, oh, we're going back to that. So then it's like we're kind of trying to fit pieces that don't fit together to create a 3-way that maybe doesn't need to be happening, but it's Wrestle Kingdom, so they're going to try and get everybody on the card, so I get it. But this 4-way, this angle felt much more organic. Everyone's fought each other, different people have beat one another, ongoing feuds in this division going back for more than a year, and this is kind of the final culmination of where all these different paths have led. So it's really exciting, and we'll talk about it more in the future, but I don't know who's winning that match at Wrestle Kingdom, so The only thing you might say negative about it all are those individuals who are like, you win the tournament, you get the title shot. And this kind of negates that. But then again, it's like, it's the junior titles.
Yeah, I did see a lot of people complaining about this being a 4-way, and this is kind of screwing Ichiban Sweet Boys. They won the league. It should be straight up Ichiban Sweet Boys versus Jet Setters, but they never really say you officially get a title shot if you win the league. It's always kind of assumed, and if you look at the history of the junior tag titles at Wrestle Kingdom, like majority of the time it is some kind of multi-man. Yes, we've had a couple of matches in recent years, Catch 2-2 and War Dogs, and Catch 2-2 and Lee Yo. Those were straight up tag matches, and they were really good matches opening the dome. But historically, outside of those, you usually have those 4-way matches where it's, Bucks and Roppongi Vice and Red Dragon and some other teams that are opening and doing these crazy fun 4-ways. And so, I'm fine with it because, I was kind of expecting it. Again, it's Wrestle Kingdom. You're trying to get as many people on the show as possible. Like, I'd rather these guys, be shoehorned into a 4-way than being stuck in the Rambo. And so I think it's a great way to showcase all 4 teams. They've all worked hard this year. They all deserved that spot. And I think it's going to be a great showcase, especially if they lay the match out like they did this finals matchup here. And you have these guys just doing crazy spots and, high pace, high intensity. I think it'll be another great opener and a good way to showcase these teams.
I don't know. To me, like, this is part of the tradition and, history of what this division was built off of. And not only to be expected, but welcomed,
Mm-hmm.
I might not want to see a 4-way if it was, Mercedes defending against 3 other chicks at Wrestle Kingdom. That's a little different, but when it's these high flying motherfuckers, I'm all for it.
Yeah. We have some questions here. Def Triangle 720 says, "Is this the best version of the junior tag division in the new era?"
I don't know. I feel like we got a question like that the other week, and I kind of felt like, I don't know, we've had some really good ones that were a little more consistent, but this is still great.
Yeah, it's like a solid lineup of teams between War Dogs, Sweet Boys, Jet Setters, and Catch 2-2. I feel like they're all 4 really solid teams. So I feel like the division's in a really good spot right now because these teams are kind of constantly always in Japan. So I think, since the days of, having Bucks and Red Dragon and Roppongi Vice and all those guys, I feel like this is a very strong division. He also asked, with Super Junior Tag League over, what would you rate the tournament overall?
A.
Yeah, it was a great tournament. I know people...
It was a great tournament.
Yeah, people were down on it, but it was a great tournament.
You kind of got to grade it on a little bit of a curve. But when you're comparing it to the other junior tag leagues, comparing it to other junior tournaments of the same ilk, would I put it on the same stature as a G1? No. But for what it is intended to be, what it's designed to be, the utility of what the tournament is supposed to be, they knocked it out of the park every single night.
Yeah, they nailed it. MJ said, give us 3 cherry pick matches from Super Junior Tag League.
I don't remember them. What were the 3 best?
Catch
the
2-2 and the finals. So that was Catch 2-2 and Ichiban Sweet Boys. Catch 2-2 versus Roppongi Revice from Corgan. I think was it another Roppongi Revice match from Corgan too that was really good.
Francesca Catch 2-2 and Roppongi Revice.
Yeah, so that one. I felt like they had another match.
And the War Dogs and the Sweet Boys were phenomenal.
Yeah.
If I were to do 3, it'd be those 2 matches, and those 2 matches were on the same Corkin show, and then the finals.
Yeah.
There's other really good matches for sure, but those were the standouts.
Yeah. All right. So moving on from there, we have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match. we had Doki defeating Master Wato by referee stoppage in 22 minutes and 7 seconds.
A very good match, maybe just shy of, being a great match. But fuck, dude, Wato came out with the shiny pants and the sequins, which I was like, oh, this man's definitely he's wearing the outfit that says, I'm gonna fuck tonight. Like, I'm gonna be the world champion, like, for sure. And after how many like failed attempts, like, this is definitely his time. Like, sorry for Doki. I'm unfortunate that he's not gonna win. And then he did win. And like at the end of it, I'm like, oh my, bro, he even did the kick out at one. And I'd mentioned on this show a few weeks ago, like, oh, if you kick out at one, you're done. Like, that's it. It's over. And when Doki kicked out one, I was like, fuck, he's about to lose. So we were calling a Doki loss. And that it was not so. Like, and then when not only did he beat Wato, but he choked him out with the Doki Choki. I was like, oh my God, they had Wato lose again. Like, they're never going with this guy. It's just not fucking happening.
I think they'll go with him eventually, but I was kind of hinting at last week, I just felt like that Puro trope was always there. The guy comes back from injury and will lose first to kind of set up the comeback. And yeah, he is 0-3 now 0-4 in junior title challenges. So he's now one of the most failing junior challengers next to Yo. But I mean, even Yo has eventually
change it to most failing. Period, and then move on. He's one of the most failing. That's it.
But yeah, he's there with Yo. I think Yo's also had multiple losses as well, but Yo's eventually won the title, and so yeah, I do think at some point they will go with him. But I think that Doki's just had such a great year, and the story of what's coming next for Doki is perfect. So kind of jumping to the post match, Desperado comes out and challenges Doki for Wrestle Kingdom. So that match is also now official. Doki defending against Desperado. I think that story makes a ton of sense considering, Despy took the title from Doki, or Doki took the title from Despy quickly into this run after winning Super Juniors, and it's had this great run. So we know the history and background between those two guys and their matches and story. And so I feel like that's a great high-profile junior match for a Dome and a great way to reward Doki for having such a great year by giving him that singles match. And I do think you could have made a Wato Despy story work based off of their stuff last year, the tag league, the whole Despo Wato stuff, and then the 4-way last year. So I think there was just stories you could have definitely pulled with Wato and Despy, but I think the more emotional play in the bigger match was to do the Doki Despy rematch.
Yeah, I'm not at all. My dog's up. He does not want me to do this show tonight. Like, he's over it. Yeah, I really was excited when Desperado came out, and I'm like, okay, this is the guy Doki took the title off. Doki's beat some of the best people in the division and really elevated his stock. And now we're getting that major rematch at the Tokyo Dome. So yeah, it's a great story. Looking forward to it. Felt bad for Wato, but I did mention last week how it's somewhat of a lose-lose, but a high-stakes match for both guys. So either way, there would be some level of disappointment or complaint just because that's where the booking had taken us for this match. So I was surprised, though. They seemed to be telling a story throughout the match that led me to believe that Wato was picking this win up. And Doki choked his ass out. So
yeah, but like you mentioned, I thought Wato looked really good in this match. The confidence was there. He wasn't missing spots or anything. He was hitting big flip dives, big strikes, and so
he looked good.
Yeah, looked good. He hit that big bridging German that he does for a near fall, but Doki eventually got, like you mentioned, the Doki Choki on him, and yeah, it was a kind of a slow pass out, and yeah, refs called the match. So yeah, great stuff. That was a great kind of comeback match to kind of showcase Wato, even though he didn't lose. And so now I think, it's time for him to kind of rebuild, and I think next year will end up being a big year for him.
Picture this. You're not just fixing cars, you're living your passion every day. At Cox, you'll work on a diverse range of automobiles. Surrounded by a team of friendly, like-minded individuals, you'll enjoy great pay and benefits. Ready to make this a reality? At Cox, we're recruiting auto and diesel techs to join our Mannheim and Fleet Services teams. Learn, grow, and fine-tune your career as a technician at Cox. Find out more at cox.career/autotech.
So then that will take us to the IWGP Global Heavyweight title match. We have the champion David Finlay defeating Taichi in 23 minutes and 22 seconds.
I was expecting this match to be very good, but it exceeded the expectations that I had going into it. Really, 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 really enjoyed this match quite a bit. We've talked recently about how consistent David Finlay has become recently. Some of these kinks and complaints that we've had, how he's been working those out, and he's finding a groove and a style of match that really works for him and resonates with the audience. And then Taichi's Taichi. You know what Taichi's gonna do. Again, Taichi continued a trend on this evening of dudes debuting new gear to lead you to think that they might win a title, and then they don't do it. We were 1-1 for Wato, and then Taichi was another one, and he failed. So we didn't see the title change there. The big story of the match, though, was that as the match went on, we had seconds out at ring. Gato was out there, Taka Michinoku was out there, and later on down towards probably like the final quarter of the match, Sonata comes out in a Just Five Guys tracksuit. He seems to be supporting Taichi. We get to a point, match has been hellacious, back and forth, and Taichi hits the Black Mephisto on David Finlay, and it looks like he's got this all sewn up, all wrapped up. All distractions are, being negated. Taka's taking care of Geto. It looks like Taichi's got the title. 1, 2. Suddenly, the referee gets pulled out of the ring. You look, the crowd starts. I mean, they were so fucking. The heat was unreal, just fucking livid. And there's that moment where Taichi's looking out into the entranceway. You see Sonata there. Sonata's pausing, and then slowly he unzips the tracksuit, and he is wearing a War Dog shirt, which I must have seen that War Dog shirt a million times, but for whatever reason, just never caught my attention. I'm like, it's a pretty hard shirt, actually.
Yeah,
but the crowd were not fucking happy here.
Yeah, they're definitely big boos for Sonata, and yeah, they framed the camera shot like your typical kind of WWE angle there. As you can see the 1, 2, pulls the ref out. You don't see who pulls it out, and then eventually you do see it's Sonata, and Taichi was confused. He the way he was covered, he didn't see how the ref got pulled out, so he's looking around. He looks at Gato. He's like yelling at Gato, thinking like Gato's the one that pulled him out. And Gato's like, I've been out here fighting Taka Michinoku. Like, I didn't do it. And you mentioned, Sonata pulls the tracksuit down, and shows the Bullet Club shirt, which causes Finlay to hit Taichi with the shillelagh and get the pin over Taichi. And then you have the post match where Taka's trying to make a save, Doki runs out, and but they're just outnumbered and outmatched, and the Bullet Club War Dogs stand tall. And there was a press conference where Finlay told Taichi, like, you gotta know who the wolves are, and so he's saying Sonata was the wolf in Just Five Guys, and just talked about the entry fee into the War Dogs was to bring bodies and championships, and Sonata brought the bodies, and so Sonata is now part of the Bullet Club War Dogs.
The funny thing with this is like we had heard the rumors a while back. We've hinted at it on the show. At the same time, I've always wondered, are they really going to do this, and how does it fit into the overall picture of New Japan with their booking and everything like that? There had been rumors going back for a while that sometimes on internal memos, for whatever reason, when guys are booked to do turns or have major angles and they don't want it to get out who that individual is, they would just write the name Sonata on the line. This is something I've heard before where like there have been rumors many times in the past and speculations where people have seen internal things and it says Sonata is slotted to do XYZ. Then it turns out to be someone else turning. And like the theory became like Sonata was just an internal code to keep it under wraps who the actual intended individual was. And some people, that was what they thought here. They're like, someone is turning and joining the War Dogs, and they're just doing the old Sonata code bit. Not so. Like it actually did turn out to be Sonata. And it kind of makes sense in some ways for his character because I mean, given the booking, after carrying the title for, the better part of a year and everything like that. Zach said Muto's disciples greater than Kawada's. um, given the run that he had the year prior and then dropping the title in the dome and, failing in multiple attempts to get back to that place and kind of not being seen by the general audience as someone on that caliber. I mean, we've talked about the disastrous run of Sonata where like it seemed like it was intended to propel him to a level of like being in the top 5 so they could work him into the rotation the way that they'd been able to do in the past with like guys like Kota Ibushi and things like that, Tetsuya Naito, and you can use him in a variety of roles at the top of the card. And it just didn't seem to be working in that capacity. It was very clear a change was needed. In this version, he is being it's very clear he was the leader of his group, and now he is coming under the subservient leadership. He's under David Finlay. Now he'll probably be one of the top guys in the group, but this is, to me, it's kind of like when Kenta joined Bullet Club a few years back, and he was under Jay White at the time. And there was a lot of speculation back then too. It's like, who is the top guy in Bullet Club? And it's like, you've got a big name, but it became very clear, like Kenta's going to do some things. He's going to hold the US title. He's going to hold the Never title. He's going to challenge for the world title, but he's never going to be the leader because he's not the top guy in the group. And that's where we're at with Sonata. Sonata went from being the leader of just 5 guys. Now he is, probably like the 1B guy under David Finlay. And you got to kind of wonder how this is going to shake out with a group that is largely jingoistic. It's all white guys. And, a lot of people were kind of anticipating that Gabe Kidd would be that guy that moved up into that spot. And now it sort of creates a bit of a competition within their ranks.
Yeah, it's definitely a downgrade there for Sonata from going from a leader and going under Finlay. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this ends up slotting out for him. And, part of the rumors that we heard, the reason why they were doing this is they wanted to have a domestic star in the Bullet Club War Dogs community. Like you mentioned, all those guys are white foreigners. And so sometimes those guys are not always brought into every tour, even when they're champions. Clark and Drilla were tag champions. They weren't brought into every tour. Dave Finlay's global champion. He's not brought into every tour. And so I think they wanted to have a domestic home star there in that group that could probably be on more tours so that they don't have to worry about flying guys in all the time. And so I think that even though he won't be the leader of the group, I think he will be probably seen more as kind of like domestic face of that group since he's obviously Japanese and lives in Japan. So I think he's going to kind of carry that banner when those guys are not there.
It's not a bad move for him, but it's also a clear indication that world title level run, that main event run, was a failure.
Yeah.
Because there can't be any greater testament to that than you were the leader of a group, you were a world champion, and now you're not. You're not going to be seen at that level. He's not going to be a top 5 guy in the company.
Yeah, Zach saying, I let just 4 guys dissolve and free up Yuya.
Bro, I was wondering when we were watching, because during the post-match angle, several of the just four guys came out, and it was pretty emotional. Like, Taichi, at one point Taichi was out of it and like was being lifted up by Sonata, and Sonata was like almost kind of mockingly offering him condolence, and Taichi wasn't really quite sure what was going on, and then they still fucking jumped him or whatever. Taka got kicked in the balls, and Doki came out, and I'm like, who's the fifth guy? Like, what other fifth guy is in this group? Like, I literally couldn't remember that it was Yuya Uemura and that he's injured. And I was like, what even is this group anymore? Like now, with that guy out, they're basically just three guys, essentially.
Yeah, on the website, Japanese website, they did switch everything over so that they are back to being just four guys. So I'm sure the Just Four Guys merch fans are pretty happy. Their merch is back in stock, now back in trend.
I gotta get a Just Four Guys shirt, on that Y2AJ life.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, they'll probably start selling those again, and yeah, we'll see what happens with this group. And yeah, I kind of agree with Zach. I don't think that this is a long-term play for Yuya, and I think there definitely needs to be a shake-up with that group.
Did you see that the BCC is now the Death Riders?
I did not see that. I know that that's what people were kind of calling them, but I didn't know it was officially.
Yeah, it's official tonight.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're recording on Wednesday, so during Dynamite time. So yeah, so I figured that's what people were calling them. So yeah, it makes sense. So we had this whole angle here, setting up Finland or Sonata in the War Dogs. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for him. We have some questions here. MJ says, what do you think Sonata's role is going to be in the War Dogs? And related, how do you think Gabe Kidd how long do you think Gabe Kidd lasts in Bullet Club?
I don't know. I do think that them putting him in that match with Kenny Omega is a vote of confidence of some sort. But at the same time, I don't know if they fully know where they want to take him, because I think he's doing the job there. When you consider how many big matchups he's had, both in New Japan and outside of it in affiliate companies against major stars and major champions, and he keeps losing in a lot of those cases, you have to wonder, like, is it better to be getting placed in those top positions and getting the opportunity to get over in spite of losing? Or is there some of that Bruiser Brodyism where he needs to protect himself and be like, no, that doesn't work for me, brother, because they keep jobbing him out. I think thus far he's done a good enough job with his persona, his act, and his creativity and work to kind of negate that and make people forget about those big losses. But they do start to pile up over a period of time. And like, there's only so many times you could be put in a top position to fail, to where people start to begin to see you that way. And there's like a Dolph Ziggler effect. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if he's not going to be the leader of his group, and he's not going to hold the big boy belt, and he's not going to beat any of these legends, it gets hard to see the world where he leapfrogs like David Finlay and some of these other guys.
Yeah, I with them, I think the long-term play is to have him eventually go babyface and lead that group and do something different. I think that's the best path for him to become more of a star and get more opportunities. Because you said, like, right now, adding Sonata in, that kind of bumps him down in the pecking order, and I don't see him leapfrogging either of those guys to be the push guy in Bullet Club. So I think the call is for him to eventually leave and then do his own thing, maybe start his own faction. But like you mentioned, him facing Kenny is definitely a good sign, I would think, for his future. And I think that could potentially maybe even lead to him not being in Bullet Club eventually down the line. Wukong 901 says, thoughts on tonight with the War Dogs, legit WTF.
I've already kind of given my thoughts.
Yeah. And kind of like you mentioned, like we had heard this months ago, and so it wasn't a surprise when it happened. I mean, like you said, we weren't sure it still was happening, But then once the Dave Finlay interview when the press conference dropped, the alarm started going off. And then Sonata's match with Umino early in the night, and then getting to this angle, it all made sense, and I wasn't surprised.
I will say this, though, and maybe this is peeling back the curtains too much. I don't normally reveal my sources or anything, but we did eventually get this like confirmed by multiple independent sources. But the first person that I ever heard it from was JCast on that, and I don't know who their sources are. They talk to more people in the company than we do for sure, but I thought they might be fucking with me. Like I was like, I believe it because they're credible, but I also wonder if they're just trying to feed me a piece of misinformation to fuck with me.
Yeah, well, because honestly, that move, Sonata to War Dogs, when I first heard it, I was like, that can't be right. Like that sounds dumb.
And it was during G1, like, so it was like, oh no about that one.
Yeah. Like that reminds me of that like elite rumor we heard that somebody told us about them showing up at Wrestle Kingdom.
Bro, I'm so glad we didn't report. That would have like killed us in the water in the early days of this show if we had like tried to break news and be like, the fucking elite, they're coming back. and we did hear it from a credible source, and it would have been such total bullshit. I'm so glad. Of all the smart things we've ever done, that's one of the smartest, is just not breaking that news.
Yeah. Zach said Sonata and Jake Lee for World Tag League.
Oh, God. Oh, is Jake Lee in that group?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He's a War Dog. That might happen. Oh, man. There's some All Japan and there's some All Japan fans out there that are going to rejoice over this one.
Yeah. Death Triangle 720 says, did it feel out of left field for Sonata of all people to join the War Dogs?
Enough was enough. It was time for a change.
Yeah, I mean, when I initially heard the news that this was happening months ago, I did feel out of left field. But as it played out and kind of knowing that it was coming, I mean, I understand the reasoning. We talked about why it was happening, but when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, this seems like a very weird move.
I barely have enough time to listen to shows on our network these days with how busy my job is and everything, and so I haven't listened to very many, if any, New Japan podcasts. But something just tells me very likely, like, those We Work Stiff guys, they probably been tracking the like downbeat storylines, and they're like, yeah, on this day in this backstage comment, he kind of hinted a little bit at this. This has been in the works. We've been tracking. Like, they probably had the scoop on this for a long time, just based off of inferences.
Yeah. Defring also asked, do you think New Japan wasted a potential Sonata and Taichi tag run? Those two could have benefited from a tag run and giving the heavy tag division another team.
Yeah, potentially, but at the same time, like, we've seen Taichi sort of go down that road. We've seen Sonata go down that road. I do think that there probably would have been some money in that for sure, but it is what it is. It is funny. Taichi's the guy that brought Sonata into the group, and he's the one that got betrayed. You almost wonder, like, maybe you should have done some due diligence before you decided to make this guy the leader of your fucking faction,
Yeah, man. Poor Taichi. First it was Kanemaru turning on him, leaving the group. Now Sonata turning on him, leaving the group.
Run a background check first.
Yeah, they need to add a guy that's just there doing the background checks, because some of these guys are letting in here. That's not working out for them.
Jeremy doesn't do background checks on people that join our social suplex.
Well, I think we're at a good spot. We have a pretty good team right now. Let's Go 7252 says, having Sonata in the War Dogs is not the greatest move, but it can help him finally show that aggression that he's been hiding in him. The major disappointment with this heel turn is that he will revert back to his position behind Dave Finlay the same way he was with Naito and LIJ. Who is Sonata's replacement? Could it be Shota Umino or someone else stronger that can be in that same position as Uemura, while Taichi can lead the main event scene in just 5 guys?
I think that's the most important and interesting aspect coming out of all of this is what happens with just 5 guys, and does this create a power vacuum where a new leader is necessitated to come in? Because again, the whole reason that they brought in Sonata to that group was that none of the 4 guys, including Taichi, were seen by management or the audience as being the caliber to lead the group, right? I know there's a lot of different kinds of New Japan fans that listen to this show, right? And some of you guys got your own special guy, but if you've been listening to us for any length of time, you know there was a very, very small window where we got on the Sonata train, but all the time preceding that and the time following that, we've been saying for a long, Zach says TJP can be the leader. We've been saying like that Sonata isn't a main event caliber guy. And, the only time that we changed our tune on that was when they gave him the haircut, gave him the new trunks, and had him beat Okada. And that felt like we were on track to a potential new horizon for him. But look at that G1 block. Like, he didn't do shit with it. You know what I mean? He didn't do anything really of note with that title run. And I'm not surprised. I'm only surprised that I even bought in the first place. I'm disappointed there because, but I know a lot of fans for various points have just bought in on this guy, and his track record is a track record of he's a Lex Luger, he's a Diesel, he's a guy that shows all the promise in the world, but can't really put it all together and consistently disappoints and doesn't have the fortitude for whatever reason. I don't know what it might be, whether it's a charisma issue or, a ring IQ issue. I don't know what it is, but he doesn't have the stuff that it takes to be a main event player in this environment. And he didn't have it in Wrestle 1, and he didn't have it in All Japan, and he didn't have it in TNA prior to all this. So this is just another string of ongoing failures. Some guys fail, consistently, and that's Sonata. I'm sure that he is good enough to be in this company, and he is good enough to play a utility role, but it's become clear we gave him a shot. It didn't work out. The experiment is over. It's time to move on, and the believers have to kind of just eat it on this one, honestly.
Yeah, and we've been saying for a long time on this show that Sonata is a great tag team wrestler. And so, yeah, maybe they should have done more of him and Taichi, the tag team, because obviously Taichi's a great tag team wrestler also. I think it's very clear that he's just not a guy you can push as a top guy. They tried, it failed, and now he's being reverted back to his original role, that kind of enforcer role like he was in LIJ, and kind of being that lieutenant to Naito is going to be that kind of same role for Finlay, which he was fine in that role. He was good as that number 3 when Shingo came in, heavyweight in LIJ. And so I think it's a spot that he's going to be able to do well in. And then there's several guys in that group that he can team with. I know they were leaning more Gabe Kidd and Jake Lee as the Mad Bastards, but you could do Sonata and Jake Lee. You could do Sonata and Gabe Kidd. You can do Sonata and Finlay. So there's different kind of teams up you can do there to use Sonata in that role. Let's Commission also asks, is Miho Abe the next to betray Taichi? Taichi must be a pretty bad friend if the group is 1 year in and Kanemaru and Sonata has already betrayed him to go to Bullet Club. It's just 5 guys and a transcend faction just for Bullet Club.
I don't like the victim blaming here. You know what I'm saying?
Also,
it's his fault. He was a bad friend. It's his fault that these people fucked him over. Blame the victim. Classic West Commission.
And Rich and James pointed out on One Nation Radio this week that Sonata and Evil back on the same side.
They're not.
Both Bullet Club.
we can make that joke, but it's pretty clear that these groups are not tied together anymore.
Yeah, that would be
They're-
funny though if they made them like team together just because they needed like another team.
Oh, I can't. They're definitely going to cross paths again, and it's going to be funny when he's like, "You got the black and white shirt. I got the." They both got the black and white shirt, but they're going to come to blows. Like they're not boys. They're not in the same group.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
So
This is Wolfpack. NWO Red and Black, NWO Hollywood.
so
They're both NWO, but they're different. They're not the same. They're not on the same team.
So would the War Dogs be the Wolfpack, and then how the Torturers Hollywood?
Yeah.
And then everybody else's B team.
Yeah. Eventually we'll get to NWO 2000. Bro, do you remember NWO 2000?
Unfortunately, I do. Yes.
Bro, I was hype about NWO 2000. I was like, the band is back together, bro. And they got Jeff Jarrett this time. It's gonna be tight as fuck.
Slap nuts.
This is gonna turn things around.
Oh man. Well, let's talk about the main event here, the IWGP World Heavyweight Title match. We had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating the Dragon Shingo Takagi in 29 minutes and 28 seconds.
Rounding out 3 for 3 title challengers in singles matches with the new gear, tricking you into thinking that because they have the new hot shit that they might win the title. Was Shingo Takagi. Came out with red gear that I've never seen him have before, an incredible robe. This man went all out. Like, these people were spending real money on these. I wonder if these guys got told that maybe they might win and went out and bought new gear for that purpose, and then they're like, psych, yeah, we're not going with you this time, but you look good. You look good. It's a Zack Shingo match, so it's going to be phenomenal, and it's always phenomenal. This is clearly the biggest match that these two guys have had. I mean, maybe I'm wrong there. Did Shingo defend the title against Zack? He did.
So Power Struggle 2021, Shingo was the champion and defending against Zack.
But that wasn't in front of a crowd.
I think it might have been limited capacity.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, this is clearly like, in this era, post COVID with actual crowds and everything, the biggest match that these guys have had. The stakes were there and everything like that. I thought the work was phenomenal. I did kind of a little bit fail to fully connect here because it's like I've seen this match many times. It is always new and inventive. It's not like they just go to the well and play the hits. They're always doing new and creative things, but there's also a vibe, if you will, like they're playing jazz. It's different each time, but I kind of know the underlying notes, the tones. I know where they're going with this. You know what I mean? And that's not bad. I mean, the match was phenomenal. Maybe part of it was the fact that the show was 5 hours and it was a little long in the tooth for me at that point. I'm not quite as high as everybody else on this match. That being said, they did really exceed the high expectations that were placed on them. I think this was a better than great match. So now I'm probably looking at like 4.25 plus here is probably where I was on this match. I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought the finish was great because very definitive. They told a great story with Shingo having his leg worked on by Zack, and that kind of paying dividends down the stretch where he got himself in advantageous positions, but was unable to capitalize because of the damage that had been done to his leg. He took a wheel out from him, and that eventually opened the door for Zack to, land whatever his new move is. I'm just going to call it the Super Zack Driver.
You've been tangoed.
What's it called?
You've been tangoed.
He hit him with the Super Zack Driver, the cross-legged Zack Driver for the 1, 2, 3. A great match. yeah, just a great match. Um, maybe I wasn't as excited about this as I should be, but I mean, if you have a certain expectation of level of what an IWGP World Title match should be in 2024, this is it.
Yeah, this was a great match. Like 4.5 on the match. I think one thing that kind of hurt this match was just the fact that we pretty much knew that Zach was winning, that Shingo wasn't going to get the win here. So I think that kind of hurt the match a little bit, knowing that or expecting that Sabre was going to win. But besides that, it was, your classic Sabre Shingo matchup, and a lot of the great psychology there. And one of the big story elements of this match, they mentioned that every time that Zach has beaten Shingo, he tapped him out. So part of what Shingo was doing in this match, you saw Shingo like working on Zach's arm, the midsection, and then going back to a sleeper every once in a while because he wanted to get a submission victory over Shingo. And then for Zach, he had never been able to pin Shingo. He's always had to revert to submission. So yeah, him getting the pin with the Yuban tangoed cross-legged Zach driver was a big deal for him because he had never been able to pin Shingo. So that was kind of a big notch in the belt for him. But yeah, great back and forth matchup here between submission holds and Shingo's big striking power, and even Zach kind of throwing strikes too. And we've seen that in the past where Zach will fall into somebody's striking game, but Zach has put on some more muscle and been able to hang in there in the striking game a little bit better. So, and we did have towards the end, there was a Last of the Dragon near fall, which not many people really kick out the Last of the Dragon, but Shingo's leg that you mentioned had been worked on by Zach, so he wasn't able to follow up in time to cover Zach, and by the time he was going for a cover, Zach had rolled to the rope, so he wasn't able to capitalize there. So it's still kind of protecting the Last of the Dragon there, and yeah, that all built to Zach and the Yuban tangoed. So great matchup there, and good defense for Zack Sabre Jr. Then post match, Zach is cutting a promo and asking who's going to be the next challenger. Out walks Shota Umino, getting booed out the building once again. So he gets in the ring and talks about beating him in G1 and wants a challenge, and Zach said, yeah, you can have it, anytime, any place. And they play the Wrestle Kingdom music. They shoot the confetti to celebrate Zach's win. But then out of nowhere, Ricochet comes in, fully suited, hits a big springboard attack on Zack Sabre, gets on the mic, big Ricochet chants. And Ricochet says he didn't get a chance to congratulate Zach on the win, and he wants to be the best wrestler in the planet and challenge for the world title. He wants that power, and he wants to show that he's still the effing man. And then he challenged Sabre for January 5th at Wrestle Dynasty. And then he was getting ready to hit Sabre with his new version of the Hidden Blade. But then Shota Umino came back out and saved Zach for a second when Zach was still pissed, and pushed Umino, which led Umino to hit the Death Rider on Zach. Big boo. So Zach's laid out. Umino's getting booed. Ricochet is on the stage, kind of smiling and taunting these guys.
It was funny because my girlfriend, she's a pretty big wrestling fan. Very familiar with New Japan, but she's a pretty big fan of Ricochet going back to his like WWE days, right? So I'm like, oh, look who it is, and she's like, oh, it's Ricochet, And one thing she does not like about New Japan is the amount of cursing, and she'll be like, she's like, they shouldn't be doing that. That's And when Ricochet started said he wanted to be the fucking man, she's like, why? It's Ricochet. Like, why is he doing that? But very telling that Umino comes out. I know it's Osaka. I know it's not Tokyo. I get it. But bro, they liked him earlier in the show. They booed him out of the building. It was worse than an apathetic response. It was a negative response, and he's a face. He's arguably the top face of Hantai at this current time, and they don't give a fuck. They do not want him. They are rejecting this guy in the and they didn't even come out and say during the promo, at least that I could tell from the translations, that this is set for Wrestle Kingdom. This is going to be in the Tokyo Dome. Nothing like that. They just were like, let's do it. You know, you're a dickhead. I'm a dickhead. The crowd's booing. I'm like, oh, this is rough. Like they don't want this dude. Then the Ricochet angle comes out. And like on the one hand, I've always felt New Japan fumbled Ricochet. They didn't use him to his top potentials that could have been there in the company. And that's always been a shame. And at the same time, like, this is out of fucking left field. I have to eat crow. I know that I pushed this idea for a long time that it was going to be Zach and Okada. And I just hoped that I was the smartest guy in the room. I mean, it's okay that I didn't get it right. We don't always get everything right on the show, especially me. I'm a little bit more tinfoil hat with some of my conspiracy theories here, but I didn't think it was going to be Ricochet. And Jeremy, I think that this show, while it was a fantastic show, and I think for New Japan 2024 standards, it's definitely going to get nominated for Show of the Year. When you couple together the level of high quality matches combined with how many meaningful angles took place, it's an important show. I don't know if I'm as high on the show as a lot of other people are, because we live in a day and age where probably on the main level of what is a top-notch show, just in terms of work rate, you have to kind of compare it to some of the best pay-per-views that AEW does. And this is not on that level, no matter what people say it was, or are willing or hoping for it to be. It just wasn't, but still a great show. Putting the quality of the show aside, the directions of some of these booking decisions were kind of perplexing and mind-boggling. There's some very positive ones, but particularly at the end of the show, with it being Shota Umino and then Ricochet, really strange. Like, neither one of those matches with Zack Sabre as the opposite guy screamed to me, this is a main event level match for the world title in the Tokyo Dome. I mean, it's not quite Tanahashi Okada, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of beating the drum on Shota Umino and explaining what our feelings on him and him just not being ready. And I still don't think that he's ready, and that we talked about it last week. They did not do a great job building him up to this spot. Lackluster G1, kayfabe wise, and the whole year he had a lot of big losses. Hasn't been a lot of momentum. They did not really build well to this point, and to the point now where, the fans are rejecting him because they don't think that he's deserving of this position. And so that's a very baffling, Tokyo Dome main event choice for me for night one. The Ricochet match, I mean, I like that match. Also, that kind of goes back to almost like the Evolve kind of days of independent wrestling, having guys like Zach and Ricochet facing off, and I'm sure they probably wrestled in other promotions as well.
I think they've done a PWG match, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe Evolve.
Yeah. So, I mean, this, they're going to have a great match. I think it's a good spot. But as far as main eventing the Tokyo Dome, is that the right match for January 5th? But then again, in both situations, we could end up where there is some kind of Naito match that is the true main event. Like Naito and Hiromu could end up being the real main event on January 4th, and then Naito versus whoever else could end up being the real main event on January 5th.
Yeah, so I mean, Zach and Ricochet have wrestled one another quite a few times in different various promotions and styles of matches. I'm going to change it to just singles matches and kind of get down. I'm going to do, I'm sure Chris is going to do this job anyways, but these guys have faced off 7 times previously. Zach beat Ricochet in IPW UK in 2013. Zach beat him again in SWE in England. They wrestled in 2013. Zach beat Ricochet for the WXW. There was some sort of CZW, WXW Big Japan tournament. Zach beat Ricochet again in Battle of Los Angeles in 2015. Ricochet beat Zach for the first time at Evolve 69, and then they fought twice in 2017 for World WSW in Australia, and Ricochet beat Zach both times. So Zach beat him 4 times in a row. Ricochet beat him 3 times on the back half, so they're 4-3 at this current time.
Yeah, so long history there, rivalry there. So I'm excited for the match. I think it's gonna be a great matchup. But yeah, it's like, is that what you're pushing this show on? Is that matchup to sell out the Tokyo Dome? Not sure.
There's a lot of issues here, man, and I mean, like, we can't sugarcoat it. One of the reasons why the G1 winner facing off for the title at the Tokyo Dome works is because the importance of that tournament is such it's the prestige that exists there. It's a way to whittle down who that top contender, who that future main eventer just might be, right? And there's that tradition there. Now, we've been supportive of them going around trying different things and doing different things, but it's always been, the idea that Zach would win the title early, win the tournament early. We thought that there was good logic to them doing that because it gave them time to try and establish him going into the Dome. But it was always with the understanding that they were probably going to give him some sort of marquee match at the Tokyo Dome. The idea that it's Shota Umino not only is bizarre. I mean, it's not only bizarre because Umino's not getting the kinds of reactions that someone in his position should be getting. It's also perplexing because the booking hasn't reflected, from a win-loss standpoint, somebody that deserves to be in that spot. And then more importantly, when you look at the G1, he didn't even make it to the final 6 of the tournament. How can you have a guy that didn't even get into the playoffs in a more liberal tournament? Normally, it's just the top 2 guys get through. They opened up the floodgates and let 6 guys go through, which that's pretty rare. They've only done that like one other time. He wasn't even good enough from a win-loss standpoint in that tournament to get into the qualifying rounds. So, you know what I mean? Like, how did we get here? How is he the guy?
Right,
Like,
yeah. That's what I was saying, last week. It's like, they knew this is where they were going. Why wasn't he one of those 6 guys? He should have been in the semifinals. Heck, he should have been in the finals and failed. And then it's like, all right, at least he kind of got to that spot and failed. And now here he comes. He's overcoming, and he's going to do another shot at it. And yeah, I mean, the beginning of the year, he should have been beating people. And then all after G1, I mean, I know he beat Sonata here, but he should have been beating other people and other top names to build himself up to get to this point.
It was very clear all year that they had big plans for Tsuji, given how he did in those tournaments, given some of the opportunities he's had. And Umino, they've kept him in the rotation, but he's suffered losses that made you kind of question where they wanted him to go. The crowd has lost connection with him, and now it's really manifesting itself in this place where it's like the crowd like him. They see him at a certain level, but once you try to insert him undeservedly and unearnedly into this main event role, they're rejecting it. And I don't know. It's bad booking. Like, at the end of the day, this is bad booking. It goes along with things that we've said in the past about how they didn't do a good job preparing for the defections of certain stars from this company and building up the future generation. And it's like brick upon brick. This thing has been building up. And now we're at a point where it's like, okay, you wanted to do things differently and have Zach win. You needed to be building to a comp, even if this is what you wanted to do. If you wanted to buck tradition, put 2 first-time headliners in the Dome against one another, and you've never, I'm not convinced that this actually is the main event. Like you said, it screams that we've said boldly that it's not, but things are so crazy in New Japan, it might just be the fucking It might just be the main event at this point. I doubt it. I mean, if I had to guess between this match and the potential Naito and Hiromu match, that they're probably gonna end the night with Naito Hiromu, which is like, is that what you want? You want your world title to go second from the top with two guys that aren't viewed as being able to. I don't think this does favors for Zach. I definitely don't think it does any favors for Umino. And it comes down to the booking. I loved the show. The show was great, but the direction coming out of it is a big negative. Kind of reminds me of what we said recently, like with when Hiromu wrestled
Hanare.
Hanare, and everyone was upset about the fallout of that. And it's like we keep having these blunderous directions, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the office is listening and it's like we're just two guys complaining because we're not getting our way. But it's like I've watched this product for a long time, and there is a certain expectation level of a certain type of quality. And after watching Gato book for this many years, you just there are certain story beats, there are certain patterns that emerge, and you're just sort of expecting, like, he's gonna prepare the way for somebody to be in that main event. And it didn't happen. I think that they've failed Zach. And some people are gonna look at it and say, like, this is an indication that they don't trust Zach. And maybe there is some truth to that, but it's like, if you wanted this kid to take the mantle, bro, what was my predictions for this year? My predictions were like, you put the title on Mox, you push Amino, you have Amino win the G1, you have him fight Mox for the title. That's like the big angle. That's the big story. You give the kid the push. He didn't make it to the top 6. I don't think if you're not in the top 6 in this year's tournament, I don't think that you have the juice to challenge for this belt. And it's terrible that it's happened this way, but that's where they booked it, and it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, he just kind of seems like a lame duck challenger, and he's getting the response that way because they did not book this very well. Like, if they want to do this, like, this could have been done in a way where it would have made sense to be Umino and to build him up, but they just didn't do that.
I even when this was the post-match angle, I was like, okay, they might do it. I know you mentioned that there's like the upcoming Lowell Mass show. I was like, maybe it's just going to happen there because they didn't mention Wrestle Kingdom. You know what I mean? And then the press conference happened yesterday, and it like was confirmed. And I'm like, oh my God, like, we're just sneaking shit in now, and hoping that there's not a blowback on it. And I don't know. Zach wins. The story's going to be that they don't trust their young talent. They didn't do a good enough job building them up. And it's not going to do any favors for Zach. But if you go the opposite way and you put that title on Umino, no one's going to respect it or respond well to it. You're setting that young dude up for failure. And it's going to be like, man, New Japan is, on tough times right now.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a lose-lose situation, regardless of who wins.
And then as far as the Wrestle Dynasty thing, it's like, Ricochet is the dude you're sending. Like, I know the Osaka crowd responded well. I know he has a history in Japan. I know he's a really great performer. The match will be good, but I don't know. When you look at the list of top stars that exist in AEW and you want to have that crossover match, this is not one of those dream matches. This screams guy just credible enough to pass the sniff test so that they can say we're sending you a guy who can also lay down without really hurting AEW's bottom line or credibility,
Yeah, and it's not really a dream match because you just mentioned how many times it's happened before, and yeah, it's gonna be a great matchup. But like, why not do a first time matchup for Zach versus an AEW guy?
I mean, it could have been that. It could have been any of his former foes that are proven draws. It should have been Okada. You know what I'm saying? It should have been Okada. If you want to do business, that's who it should be. But let's say you don't do Okada. Like, there's Kenny. Bro, I was convinced that we were getting him and Kenny Omega because Kenny Omega's on the card. We only saw them wrestle once in a singles match during the G1, and it always felt like they had some sort of level of unfinished business. But they're not going to have Kenny lose to Zach, and New Japan's not going to put their top title on Kenny, so that can't happen. And then it becomes a game of who can lose. Yeah, Zach says Takeshita, but it's like there are so many big stars in AEW. Given how much they have depleted the roster of New Japan and how one-sided this partnership has been in so many respects, and the fact it's a co-branded show, you gotta give a little to get a little. They should have given a bigger name to actually. Yeah, New Japan people are talking about this, but the major sentiment is what the fuck, What you want is oh my God, we're getting Kenny versus Jericho. I never thought this could ever happen. This is a dream match. Holy shit. We're not getting that. I don't know what kind of business they're going to do in the Tokyo Dome, but I'm bearish on it right now.
Yeah, I think they're really leaning in on the fact that it's being a weekend, and they should have an easier time because they're filming some bold and ballsy moves here with some of these matchups.
Maybe they're bold, or I kind of think they're pussified, honestly. Like they're scared. These are scared decisions, kind of weak. One thing I will say, I went back and I looked at the I know that I said before that it's very rare for them to have run 2 first-time guys in the dome, and that is true, but there have been some times where there have been times where guys have quote unquote headlined the dome, but it really wasn't what it was all cracked up to be, and maybe they got solidified more the second time. So I did go back and look at some of those Tokyo Domes from the early 2000s, and there is this element of we're coming out of, or we're in the dark ages or coming out of them, and we're trying new main event formulas to see what might work. And you go back and you look at some of those like Nakamura and Tanahashi the first time, or maybe Kojima versus Tenzan, stuff like that. There were some experimental things kind of going on there too. And they were coming out of a transitionary period. Maybe that's what they're feeling is this is their ability, their attempt to build a credible star and to find a suitable main event from within. I know a lot of diehard fans in New Japan were like, we don't want someone from the outside to come in. We want it to be 2 established New Japan guys. The problem is the booking doesn't match the build. So it's not as meaningful or as important as it probably should have been. And that falls. This is a creative and this is a booking issue more than anything else.
Yeah,
it's not good.
We had a few questions here. Def Triangle 720 says, "Do you think it's pretty left field to have Ricochet challenge for the world title at Dynasty?" We kind of mentioned that.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Then next _ astronaut 623 says, "WTF is up with booking Shota Umino in the Wrestle Kingdom main event?"
The only thing I can kind of figure is they just thought that they had established a certain level of connection with him in the audience, and they thought that he was Teflon and was able to absorb these types of losses and disappointments over the past few years that they've put him through from a character standpoint and kayfabe. And that when the time came that because of the audience connection that it would supersede all that. And that hasn't been the case. And I think that this was probably a long-term plan, and now they can't change course. They don't have a good alternative in the works anyways. So they're kind of just sticking to their guns, but kind of knowing you have to imagine that the office is watching and being like, shit, hopefully we do good business on the day of. This is also another reason why I had concerns about the idea of a second night in the Tokyo Dome. And bro, I don't know. I'm not watching AEW very much, but are they even talking about this show? Has there been any promotion whatsoever? it's really at the end of the day, if we're being honest, it's a New Japan show that just has the AEW and CMLL names on it, just like Forbidden Doors. This is really just an AEW show with New Japan's label on it, and I think all the promotional work is going to fall on New Japan, and they've got this task of trying to focus on building Wrestle Kingdom. How are they going to split their time and attention to try to also build Wrestle Dynasty with a 1 day, difference between the two? It's going to be nearly impossible. They don't have a promotional partner that's doing any of the heavy lifting. They're not sending them a good opponent. Like, it fucking sucks.
Yeah, definitely some questionable decisions here. UD Dojo says, what is going on here? I'm so confused. Shota is clearly not over and has negative charisma, and the match doesn't seem to be set. Throwing in Ricochet for 1-5 is even odder. He's not a main eventer in AEW. Zack and Shingo in the Dome on 1-4 would have been awesome.
I agree. If you were going to do that match and you wanted it to actually mean something and it'd be great, being in the Dome would have been the best answer here. Yeah, people would have complained that it's happened so many times before, but the alternative of that versus what we're getting is it's so much better. Plus, like, Shingo's a god in the Dome.
Right. And he was in that one of those top 6 guys that made it through in G1. So it's like he has all this credibility. He did well in G1. He's a never openweight champion.
Who even were the guys? So it was Dave Finlay, Tsuji, Takeshita, Shingo, Okan,
and Zack.
They don't leave themselves a lot of wiggle room there, huh?
So again, it's very questionable. Like, why did they put Okan through there if like he's gonna be in the tag team title picture? Like, that probably should have been a spot for Umino to make this whole thing make more sense.
Did we not say that at the time?
We did, yeah. So those are the questions there. One post-match angle we skipped over was after a part of the whole world. Was that?
We forgot to talk about Finlay and Tsuji, huh?
Yeah. So after that whole Sonata turn, Finlay called Tsuji out, saying he is the one guy that he needs to kind of get the revenge on for beating in the G1. So Tsuji came out and accepted the challenge. That is also official for Wrestle Kingdom. So we did have that press conference this week. So like we talked about, Zack defending against Umino is official. Tanahashi versus Evil. Finlay defending the Global against Yosuji. Doki defending the Junior title against Desperado. Narita defending the TV title against Cobb and Oiwa in a 3-way. And then the Jet Setters defending the Junior Tag titles against Ichiban Sweet Boys, Catch 2-2, and the War Dogs in a 4-way. And then Zack versus Ricochet is official for Sunday, January 5th for Wrestle Dynasty.
Yeah, and I wasn't a big fan of the logic there where David Finlay was like, nobody beats me twice and gets away with it. And it's like, I don't know. It reminded me of like that time when Ben Stiller's like, no one makes me bleed my own blood. Nobody. It's like, I would have much rather Tsuji come out and been like, I beat your ass twice. Give me the towel shop. Instead, David Finlay's like, I'm calling my shots. I want you because you beat. The logic's dumb. Plus, he's a chicken shit heel, so I don't get it.
Yeah, Tsuji should have just been the guy. He walked out. He should have just came out and Gene blasted. It should have been just like we did Sonata going into Dominion. He should have came out, Gene blast that man, and been like, I'm coming for the belt.
You got the belt I want. Yeah, I didn't like that. Not a big fan. On paper, this show doesn't look terrible, but there's definitely a few things you could complain about. But that got a big asterisk next to Zack and Shota Umino. Big one. There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
Who? Yeah, we have a few questions here.
Yeah, Death Triangle 720 says, with most of the Wrestle Kingdom cards somewhat finalized, what are your thoughts on the matches?
I kind of just gave my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine on paper. I mean, there's going to be some really good matches here, but as far as like the drawing ability, like I'm very questionable about the Zach Umino main event. And again, we don't know what's booked for Naito yet. It seems like it's gonna be Naito versus Hiromu, and that could end up being the real draw there. But yeah, I don't think that they did a great job preparing Umino for this title match, and I think it kind of sucks for Zach. Finally getting this title, finally going to the main event at the Tokyo Dome, and they kind of set him up with this lame duck title challenger. He also asked, do you think Zach versus Shota and the other matches that are confirmed for the Dome strong enough to build buzz around the Dome?
They might sell some tickets. I don't think they're going to sell as many tickets as they want, but I can't imagine that this is going to have international fan appeal, really. And I don't know how much this is going to endear the wider audience to tune in on 1-4,
Yeah.
We have Fighting Spirit coming up, Unleashed, coming up this Friday, November the 8th, 2024, from Lowell Memorial Auditorium. This is not a pay-per-view. It's going to be available live as a thank you on New Japan World. The show is as follows. The kickoff Strong Survivor match. The never-ending Strong Survivor, Matt Vandegrift, will defend his spot against Seabass Finn. And you just know a guy with the name like Seabass Finn is definitely going to win that match. So. Second match of the night, non-title match, as David Finlay goes one-on-one with Kevin Knight. The New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team titles are on the line as recently dethroned champions TMDK defend the titles against grizzled young veterans. We have a singles match as Mustafa Ali takes on Leo Rush. Hopefully this one goes more than 6 minutes. Best out of 2-3 falls tag team match, West Coast Wrecking Crew versus Dirty Work. That might be the match I'm most looking forward to on the card, actually. The NJPW Strong Women's title #1 contendership 4-way match between Koguma, Hazuki, Trisha Dora, and Anna Jay. LIJ's Shingo and Suji take on the Undisputed Kingdom's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. We have a singles match as Kenta takes on Ryuhei Oiwa. 9th match of the night, Tanahashi and Ishii take on TMDK's Bad Dude Tito and Zack Sabre Jr. The semi-main event, the AEW International titles on the line as Konosuke Takeshita defends against TJP. And then your main event, the NJPW Strong Openweight titles on the line as Gabe Kidd defends against Kosei Fujita.
And I think that was a typo on my part. I think it's supposed to be Umino and Ishii against Badu Tito and Zack Sabre Jr.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a little more sense. Okay looking card. Probably a fun card. Nothing that, I don't know, man. We used to get bangers in the US,
Well, I mean, I was looking back, award season's coming up, and I'm starting to look back at stuff. I'm like, man, the first half of the year for US shows was like
strong.
So very strong.
Yeah. I think that people will probably sleep on that 2 out of 3 falls West Coast Wrecking Crew Dirty Work match, but that one will either suck because it'll be over convoluted with all the gimmicks, or it will be really great. Takeshita TJP is going to be very good, but you know what to expect there. And it's kind of the same thing with the Strong Openweight title. It's like TJP and Fujita have no business actually challenging for those titles. So you already know what the outcome is going to be, and that deflates some of the excitement. At the same time, the matches should be good. I wonder what the, turnout from the audience will be to this show, but this is basically the last show. Oh, we've still got Historic Crossover, right?
There's Historic Crossover in November, and then there's Strong Style Evolved in December.
Okay, so we still got 2 more shows in this calendar year.
Yeah, for our voting, we have 2 more shows, yep.
Gotcha. I don't have any other thoughts on the show. I don't know if you have any.
No, I mean, it's going to be a fun show. I'm glad we don't have to pay for it as an additional pay-per-view. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good show. It's going to be interesting to see how Grizzled Young Veteran and the TMDK play out. Is that going to be another kind of disappointing match? It should be a great match. But everything else on here should be very good if it gets time and the guys try hard enough. I think upset alert is going to be Oiwa beating Kenta going into the TV title match. I think that'll be a big win there for Oiwa. Yeah, so
he needs it.
Yeah, so it should be a good show. And don't have any other news items here because we kind of covered a lot of the big news from the press conferences and the fallout of these shows. So just a few other questions here and we'll get out of here. Equivalent aside 847 says World Tag League pick.
Oh, I don't even know. It's too. I would say a name, but the only name that I can think of in the division is TMDK, and I don't know if I'm sold on the idea that they're the ones who are going to win it. Who else is even in this division that we know is like, a likely candidate to win?
Hold on, let me see.
Maybe it will be TMDK. I can't even think of another tag team.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up who was in World Tag League last year.
Monster Sauce?
I don't know. Archers are part of the Don Callis family now. Let's see. World Tag League 2023.
And I'm not talking about like teams that are just thrown together. Like, who is an operating tag team in New Japan in 2024 that could feasibly challenge for these belts?
Yeah, so last year you had Gabe Kidd and Coughlin. So obviously Coughlin's gone, but they have been doing Gabe Kidd and Jake Lee. So if Jake Lee comes back in time, because you could do that. There's Team DK, Okan, and Hinare. They're the champions. They ran back Ishii and Yano as a team. You had Evil and Yujiro, Umino and Narita. You had the Gates of Agony, Kiyomiya, and Oiwa. So a lot of those teams are not going to be coming back.
I just need you to give me like the one team that exists in 2024 in New Japan that like has been here that exists. Like, who's out there?
Bishamon.
Oh shit. Oh god, Bishamon might fucking win this shit again. Yeah, there's nobody else. It's like Bishamon and TMDK.
Yeah, because Hikuleo's gone, so you can't do a Hikuleo ELP. I mean, Taichi and Yuya. Yuya's hurt.
What about the Acclaimed?
Yeah.
You see Max Caster rapping out to the Tokyo Dome, saying offensive shit about Japanese people,
Maybe there'll be Fale and Jack Bonza.
It probably is Team DK, just based on process of elimination. Like they're the only team left. It's them.
Death Triangle asks, with the choices of the next title pictures, which one outside of the world title would you change? I'd go for Oiwa not being involved in TV title and just have a big special single bout for the Dome.
It's not a bad change. I mean, I like the idea of him challenging. I don't love the idea of that triple threat between those three guys in particular. But, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it feels like they just, Control C, Control V, the whole Tsuji Narita Cobb feud and just replace Tsuji with Oiwa. I think they should have just had Oiwa challenge Narita, and then I would put Cobb to challenge Shingo for the Never title. He also asked how many teams should be in World Tag League.
I have no idea.
I'm fine with 2 blocks of 10 if they can actually put together 10 teams for each block.
One thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to say earlier on the show. So Ricochet, right? African-American man challenging for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. I was talking to Rich earlier the other day, and he was like, when was the last time a black dude like challenged for that title? I was like, I don't know, like Bob Sapp, like 20 years ago. And I was like, was there anybody else? And I started like looking through the histories, and I couldn't find anybody else. And I was like, dang, like we haven't had anybody in like 20 years. And then I remembered Powerhouse Hobbs just challenged for this title this year.
Bro, I forgot about that.
So the one time under Gato's regime that a black dude challenged for the title, it was really Tony Khan booking it. And the second time it's going to happen, it's really Tony Khan booking it. So if you're a black dude and you want to challenge for the big belt in Shinihan, you got to go to work for Tony. Also, I went through the further histories to see had there been any other black guys that have ever, because there's been quite a few that have like worked in New Japan through like you go and you look at the round robins and big main eventers. There's been quite a few, but like Ernie Ladd challenged Inoki a few times for the NWF title. That's it. You got Ernie Ladd, Bob Sapp, Powerhouse Hobbs, and now Rick O'Shea. That is the short list of African American gentlemen challenging for the big title.
Interesting.
New Japan sucks. They need to do something about that.
Yeah.
So last week I did have that question about what we're like, because Ilya Taporia just recently knocked out back-to-back both Volkanovski and then Max Holloway. And the question was, has there ever been two better back-to-back knockouts? And bro, I started doing some real research and like I found some interesting ones, but like I think the long and short of it is like no. I don't think there ever has been two better back-to-back knockouts. Now, I will say this, there've been strings of knockouts. Like one of the strings that Stipe went on and one of the strings Ngannou went on that are like holistically, I don't know if anyone's ever going to do what they did. But when you just consider two knockouts back to back, like I don't think there's ever been anything like it. The closest ones that I found that are probably a few that are worth mentioning. Now, I brought up the Crow Cop knocking out Wanderlei Silva and Josh Barnett back to back. That was a really, really good candidate. I feel like Nunez knocking out Cyborg and Holly Holm back to back is probably one that's worth mentioning. That's a big one. Ngannou did knock out Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos back to back. Matt Hughes has two that are very, very noteworthy. He knocked out BJ Penn and Hoist Gracie back to back, which has got to be something. He also knocked out Carlos Newton and Hayato Sakurai back to back when they were like at their tops. BJ Penn knocking out Dean Thomas and Kyle Uno in his second and third fights of his career when they were the literal top featherweight and lightweights in the world. Maybe in the long term, they weren't as important as some of these other names, but at the time, literally the top two guys in their respective divisions, and he knocked them out in his second and third fights. That's got to be huge. Rashad Evans knocking out Chuck Liddell and then Forrest. God, what's wrong with me? I can't remember. Forrest Griffin. Yeah, he knocked out Chuck Liddell and then Forrest Griffin for the title in back-to-back fights, and that's another really, really, really huge one. And then I would say Max Holloway knocking out Pettis and then Aldo. I'm sure I've got other ones that are worth noting, but those are like the big ones. But nothing on that list that I listed. The only one that I think really comes close is like Nunez knocking out Cyborg and Holm. But I don't think Cyborg and Holm collectively are on the same level as knocking out Max and Volkanovski back. Like it's just never been done. It's crazy. And I was sure I was going to find an answer, but I couldn't find. If I found the names, maybe those names weren't at the primes of their careers when it happened, or the rankings weren't quite lining up. Like to find that special combination of like beating these guys in their primes, in their top weight classes. For Max Holloway, never been knocked out before ever, or even knocked down in his whole career, and Volkanovski being like the number 2 guy in the world. These are literally 2 of the top 3 featherweights that have ever existed in history. It's unfathomable. It's really crazy.
Nice. Well, that's pretty much it. Recommended match. I still have not watched Ichi vs. Jacobs.
Bro, my week has been fucking insane. Like, you have no idea. Yeah, me either. We'll get to it. I will make a concerted effort this week to watch the recommended match of the week.
Yes, we'll get on that this week. And yep, that's going to wrap things up for the show. So next week we'll be back to review Fighting Spirit Unleashed. I'm sure we'll probably have World Tag League teams by then as well. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you link us on social media. On X, follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan. Also, the same handles over on Blue Sky. On Facebook, you can follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, just Keeping Strong Style. On YouTube, we're at Social Suplex. You can join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. And you can email me at jeremy@socialsuplex.com. Check out all those shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. Imps WWE Adventure, hosted by The Implications, Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Things. Tone Talk with Allie, Ann, and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
It's your bomb.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.